This is Rogers TV.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, February 9th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 12 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 10. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Healthcare workers and medical experts among those weighing in on the province's gradual reopening of the economy. We get the details from City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
Most are applauding the government's gradual and cautious opening plan to ease pandemic restrictions. However, some worry that allowing businesses to reopen in some areas while other communities remain locked down will only encourage travel between regions. University of Toronto epidemiologist Dr. Colin Furness tells City News that the more easily transmissible COVID-19 variants are the biggest concern going forward.
Air travel has brought the contagious variants into the community. They will dominate. That's inevitable. That's not a maybe. The only thing we don't know is when. Modeling makes it look like end of March, early April.
And he says it is possible we could wind up in a full provincial lockdown situation again in the spring. Now, the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario says the province should have delayed the economic reopening until 2 to 3 weeks after all of the students get back into their classes for in-school learning to determine if it's a factor in virus spread, especially with the variants. Now, the province has promised enhanced rapid testing in schools, but critics say no specifics have been offered, and much of the work is going to be left to local health units. I'm Kevin Meisner.
City News Time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any light snow in your area will come to an end this morning. It's not an all-day event. Mainly cloudy, some sunny breaks. The high -5. That is the average high. Tonight, partly cloudy, -16, and tomorrow, sunshine, -7. For today, the high, -5.
And right now in Ottawa, minus 12 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 10. A World Health Organization team has concluded that COVID-19 likely did not leak from the Wuhan Institute of Virology into the surrounding community. The team says it's more likely to have jumped to humans from an animal. The WHO team's mission is intended to be the initial step delving into the origins of COVID-19. 4 people evacuated after an East End Gatineau blaze. It happened early this morning. Now, when fire crews arrived, they found smoke and flames in the basement of a single-family home. Residents had already left the home thanks to a working smoke detector that alerted them. The home did sustain major damage, though, estimated at $370,000. That fire is currently under investigation. The Commons Defence Committee is set to open hearings today on allegations of inappropriate conduct by former Defence Chief General Jonathan Vance. The committee's investigation is in addition to a military police probe, as well as the Defence Minister's promise to launch an independent probe. Conservatives on the Defence Committee want to find out what the federal government knew about allegations Vance had an ongoing relationship with a woman he significantly outranked. City News Time 9:03. Motown legend Mary Wilson, co-founder of the Supremes, died suddenly at the age of 76. Her longtime friend and publicist, Jay Schwartz, confirmed her death earlier today. Wilson started her legendary career when she co-founded the Primettes alongside the late Florence Ballard and Diana Ross, and was signed to Motown Records in 1961. As part of the Supremes, the group went on to become one of the best-selling vocal groups of all time. 12 number-1 singles, including Where Did Our Love Go?, Come See About Me, and Back in My Arms Again. Wilson also played a direct role in hits like Baby Love and Stop in the Name of Love. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Inform your opinion.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
I think there's an election coming. How else do you explain all the free money? Good morning. This is the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. I think we have a great program ahead. We're going to cover a lot of ground between now and noon, and you're in the middle of it all during the Talkback Hour. Between 10 and 11 o'clock, an hour of phone calls and opinions, the hottest radio in town. Join in, be part of the fun. 750-1310. 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Right after the 10 o'clock news, you can email me, therobsnowshow@ottawa.citynews.ca. Two big things in the mix for me today. One is free money. Money for nothing. And the other is the vaccine rollout. I didn't know what to start with this morning, but let's go with money for nothing. Who doesn't want money for nothing, right? Free money. This seems to be the prevailing opinion on what is going to be announced later today by the Trudeau government, by Minister Qualtrough, the Minister of Free Money. Lots of opinion in social media this morning or in the comments section of some of the country's news websites. Hey, free money, free money, free money, free money. And maybe, just maybe, the most obvious sign yet, ladies and gentlemen, that the Trudeau Liberals are ready to put this parliament, this minority government, out of its misery and send Canadians to an election. I mean, how else do you explain what they're going to do today with the CERB? Pay attention to this story. This is going to be a major story this afternoon. And I think after this afternoon, some people will vote Liberal forever. Why not? Why not, right? How do you even compete with this announcement? Now, look, as I'm sure many of you are aware, there has been this ongoing issue, this ongoing controversy about some self-employed Canadians who collected the CERB last year when the economy was shut down and the CERB was rushed into action. And I'm not saying the CERB was the wrong thing to do. The CERB was a lifeline for a lot of people, but a lot of people, yes, some people, well, it's iffy. It's iffy, okay? Now, some of the self-employed people say the CRA misled them. Canada Revenue Agency said it wasn't clear about what CRA was talking about when it was outlining the qualifications for the CERB and how people applied for the CERB. And people did apply for the CERB, and they collected CERB payments when, quite likely, all along, they weren't supposed to qualify for the CERB payments. And, of course, they wouldn't apply it if they didn't think they would qualify, let alone collect the payments. But most of the confusion surrounds self-employed individuals. To qualify for the CERB, you had to have an income of at least $5,000, either in 2019 or in the previous 12 months. And some self-employed individuals thought that meant gross income, because that's what it said on the website. Even though if you're self-employed and you deal with the Canada Revenue Agency, it's always about net income. It's never about gross income because of all the expenses associated with, running your business. These individuals also said they had a class action lawsuit all ready to go. Maybe that had something to do with it. They say the CRA went in and they changed the language about the qualifications on the website after the fact, at a later date, to make it appear as though it was upfront with people all along. Said people by the hundreds of thousands, and they're getting letters from the Canada Revenue Agency warning them, you probably owe us money. You quite likely collected CERB payments that you weren't entitled to. Now, the last time I put this to you, good listeners to the Rob Snow Show, I had sympathy for these people, but you did not. You caught me quite off guard. Those of you who happen to be self-employed, you did not have a lot of sympathy for people who claim to be confused and self-employed about the CERB and self-employment and dealing with CRA. And you told me in no uncertain terms, Rob, you don't get it. You don't know what you're talking about. There's no way someone who is self-employed would ever think gross income when communicating with CRA. That's not how you deal with CRA. It's always about net income after deduction, after the legit business expenses are taken into account. Everybody knows that, you told me. And you told me, without a doubt, they should have to pay that money back. And you know what? That has always been the CRA's position. They're going to have to pay the money back. That has been its position. You could not knock it off that position ever since this news hit all those many, many months ago. You have to pay it back, okay? You might not have to pay it all back right away. Call us, we can make arrangements. But rules are rules, and eventually you're going to have to pay it all back. Well, that is until today. Until today. Today, the politicians are once again going to throw the civil servants under the bus. It's crowded under that bus. The Trudeau government once again throwing our civil servants under the bus for purely political purposes, because it has to be obvious to everyone by now an election is coming. In the middle of a gosh darn pandemic, they're going to call an election. Today, the Trudeau government, according to the National Post, is going to tell all of those people who collected the CERB, the self-employed individuals who should not have been collecting the CERB, you know what? Never mind. Keep the money. Forget about it. Keep it. You never have to pay it back. 14 grand. Keep it. Okay? And in fact, and I love this. If you have already paid us back, call us and we'll refund whatever you pay back. I know, David. I know. How is that for a pre-election goodie? Some people have all the luck. $14,000 worth of free money. Because you know what? What could spoil an election for the Liberals? How about sad stories in the news every day about CRA hounding self-employed people to the ends of the earth for ill-gotten CERB payments? Right? And there's the Prime Minister. We have your back, right? We have you have back, front, top of my head to the tip of my toes. You've got it all. What do you think of that, ladies and gentlemen? Don't you? Isn't that incredible? Free money. Free money. And for anyone else who collected from any of those half a dozen or so pandemic income relief programs who happens to owe taxes on that income, you're getting a tax holiday for a year. Interest-free. Has the Canada Revenue Agency ever done that in its history, I wonder? A year-long interest-free tax holiday. Why do you think the government would do that? Maybe because, what do you think? There's an election on the way? Do you think? What do you think? It's tax time. And look, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be the mother of all tax years, isn't it? But tax time could coincide with election time. So the government is going to announce later today for those people, this is what it's going to go like. Don't worry about it right now. Don't you pay us back later. Just pay us later. And vote Liberal. Look, I'm not a Grinch, okay? I've said all along, I count my blessings every day. I am one of the lucky ones. I've been unemployed. A little more than a year ago, I was unemployed. Okay? But I've had a job through all of this. I never lost a day's pay during the pandemic. And I don't mind paying taxes to help friends and neighbors who really do need help. I get it. There were millions of people who needed help. I'm there for you, okay? But if someone's getting $2,000 a month and they're not supposed to be getting $2,000 a month, well, then, yeah, I kind of have a problem with that, and I would like the government to try and get some of that money back. I don't think that's an unfair position to take. But this government, this liberal government, about to trigger an election, it's obvious now. It's basically saying, meh, it's only money. Forget about it. And don't forget at election time, who had your back? 440,000 of those letters were sent out by CRA. 440,000 of them at $2,000 a month. That's $880 million a month. The CERB lasted for 7 months. That's more than $6 billion. I remember when that used to be a lot of money back in the good old days, back in 2019. $6 billion used to be a lot of money. So that's one thing in the mix. It's going to be a big news story. I'm telling you, a lot of people, liberal voters for life after today. And if we have time, we should talk about the vaccine program, how it's going in Canada. If you really want to use a neat tool, you can just play around on it on the internet, compare how Canada's vaccine program compares against the rest of the world. I would recommend you use the vaccine tracker that's been created by Bloomberg News. You just Google vaccine tracker, Bloomberg News. It is a very neat program that they have. I was playing around with it this morning. And one of the tools you can use is how long will it take for your country to achieve herd immunity, which is when 75% of the population of your country will be fully vaccinated. Based on the current vaccination rate where you live. In Israel, for example, it's 2 months from now. Same with the United Arab Emirates, 2 months from now. In the UK, 6 months from now. That's an incredible achievement, isn't it? By the Boris Johnson government in the UK, 6 months from now. In the United States, 10 months. Like by the end of the year. And the Americans are howling mad about it on cable television. They're yelling at one another on cable television. They could have 75% of their population vaccinated by the end of this year. In a lot of European countries, now pondering export controls on our vaccines, it's between 2 and 3 years. And in Canada, how long will it take to achieve herd immunity at current vaccination rates? 8.5 years. That's right, 8.5 years. So don't make any plans. Okay? Someone from public health could be calling you someday in the summer of 2029.
We are on track.
Rob Snow Show, City News.
When you've lost your breasts, you've sort of lost part of yourself. And then all at once, you're losing your hair. You don't know who you are anymore. You want to feel like yourself again. So I think that the store, a mastectomy store, is essential because you've lost your identity. And then all at once, you're looking for a wig, you need a headscarf, you need a camisole. There's nowhere to go. There's no one to talk to. This should be essential because there are more and more women that are getting breast cancer. I think it's 1 in 6. They're becoming younger. I have a client that's 18 years old. And where do they go? They need a place like this that the women that work there understand. They know what you're going through. It's changed quite a bit. Our hours are different. We're now open from 10 to 5. We're not as busy as we were. A lot of women are afraid to go out. They're afraid that maybe there are more people in the store. So that's why I try and let them know you are alone. There's absolutely nobody in the store except you and I. If there is a woman that she's very afraid, I will lock the door to make sure nobody else comes in. I'll put a sign back in 10, 15 minutes just to give her that reassurance. Before we would have 4, 5, 6 people in the store. We didn't have to turn anybody away. Now we do. Some clients do leave and they're upset because they're in the store. They said, you know, we drove 20 minutes and now we're not allowed in the store. And I try to make them understand that there's somebody in here that's going through chemo or radiation. So that's sort of changed a lot, that we're not able to have more people in the store.
If we're talking about products, there's the bras that are adapted for mastectomy.
the bathing suits that are adapted to mastectomy. We have special camisoles as well, and post-surgery bras. And then we have, for women going through chemo, the wigs that we have a big selection in the store as well. We have scarves. Some women don't feel comfortable wearing a wig. They prefer to wear a scarf or a hat, so we have a huge selection of that as well. We offer compression garments as well. When you're going through a mastectomy, you might have lymphedema in your arms after a couple of years, and you have flare-ups. So we have the sleeves, the hand as well that can be covered. We show each other's our scar. We talk about the treatments, how we felt, and I guess that's what they're looking for here. That's what makes us special. We have an added value in this store. Besides everything that's in the store, that's a product that can handle any problem that a client might have. Me and Linda, we've been through. We know how it feels in our bodies.
Changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Cormac McSweeney, our parliamentary correspondent here at City News, says that government officials are going to hold a technical briefing this morning on COVID vaccines, and there could be some kind of announcement on a decision about the AstraZeneca vaccine. We've been waiting for some kind of news on that. And the Prime Minister, I believe, is doing the Rideau Cottage spiel today, around 11:15. So we're listening into all of that. Tomorrow is a very big day for the Ottawa City Council, because up for discussion is the draft growth management strategy. Part of the official plan. It's been very controversial for a number of reasons. First of all, there are decisions about prime agricultural land and what is going to be set aside for prime agricultural land, and basically development frozen for decades to come, the so-called gold belt. And then there's the 445 hectares, probably the most controversial 445 hectares in the history of the city of Ottawa, the so-called Taywin development near Carlsbad Springs. Doug Thompson is with me now. He is a former Ottawa City Councillor, and these days he is the president of the Greely Community Association. Good morning.
How are things today?
I'm good. Doug, it's good to hear from you. So you have joined the Greely Community Association, along with the community associations in Manotick, Metcalfe, Osgoode, and Richmond Village, in a joint letter, expressing some concern about what's up for discussion and vote tomorrow. Why don't we start with what has you concerned about the land decision on prime agricultural land? What has you worried there?
Well, I think the whole project, Rob, the community associations themselves, we got a notice on Friday, February 15th, 5:30 p.m. from the city asking us for inputs into this meeting that was coming up on the 25th, and we were to put forward a proposal or our thoughts, but we had no idea that this particular project, the T-WIN, was coming forward. So obviously we couldn't comment. There is the issue of, in the letter we sent, the issue with the agricultural land that's going to be used up in Riverside South. But in particular, the T-WIN project is, it's a significant amount of property. There are some farms, full-fledged farms within that area. There's tree farms, a lot of forested areas. And if that boundary is extended to include that area, then it's gone forever. It's going to be another Orleans or another Riverside South or Finley Creek within the boundaries of the newly expanded Osgoode ward. And
what's wrong with that?
Well, there are a number of things. First of all, the community associations are very concerned because there was no consultation whatever. We were blindsided by this.
Okay.
The rural roads in our area are just not acceptable for the traffic we have now. The village, for example, Metcalfe, is very concerned about the truck traffic that is coming through there now for the Amazon, the Rosedale Trucking Group is there, and then the future Taggart Miller landfill. So, and we're concerned in Greely as well, and Manotick about the truck traffic. So those are some of the main areas, but I think by and large,
I know. There's a lot of talk about this being a sustainable community and a so-called 15-minute community. Yeah. But the fact is, if you want to get into the city, it's going to be a long drive.
That's
right?
Correct. And the roads right now can't handle the traffic. So, and the other thing, this is, we have Osgoode is a rural ward, and if this is built out, it's going to be 50,000 urban residents, and so the rural voice has been diminishing over the years, and the community associations in Osgoode Ward are very concerned about that fact as well. So it's just, and the people that live within that proposed area, some of them are going to get rich. One property sold recently for about $50,000 an acre. Investors have been out for months trying to buy up property within that area. So the people who have, half acre or an acre lot and wanted to live in a rural area, if this goes through, they're finished. And the people within that particular area, they haven't had really any representation because part of that was Stephen Blaze ward. He retired, and so they really haven't had a councillor look after their interests. So they're very upset as well as those in the community associations outside of this proposed area.
Okay. Where are you on this gold belt idea?
Well, the gold belt, there are,
you must be hearing about it.
It's
a big issue.
Idea, but there are, and I've heard some of the farmers are concerned that eventually the land that they have, if they get out of farming, it restricts them considerably. So this is something that has some good points. It has some difficulties to protect what is important to all of us, and that is agricultural land. And I think it is important because Canada, or Ottawa, is considered, and we've always said, is the farming capital of Canada. And I think that image is being diluted somewhat by the process that is happening right now.
Okay. So what do you think should happen tomorrow? I think just, especially given the can of worms that has been opened here clearly with Algonquin politics, it needs some breathing room. I think they should defer it. When it comes up, everybody just kind of hit the pause button, take a minute, take some time, do some more consultation, talk to people, listen to people, and let's come back in 3 months or 4 months. What's the rush, right?
This will be the big test for this city council, because they, when you pass that committee 9-3, it's almost an automatic approval at city council. The mayor has come out and said he approves this a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago. But the ramifications that have come forward, my opinion, the best bet would be for them to defer it, because there has been very little consultation. This particular area is not highly scored by the staff.
No.
So they're, and with, as you mentioned, the Algonquin First Nations are very upset with this. So in just to keep peace in the community and with the residents, I think it should be deferred and go to some more consultation. But there seems to be this push to rush it through.
Yeah, okay.
And that really upsets people.
All right, Doug, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thanks again.
My pleasure.
Yeah, Doug Thompson, former city councillor for Osgoode Ward. He is the president of the Greely Community Association. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University is coming up next right after the 9:30 news here on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, February 9th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 12 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 9. And here's what's making news this hour. A team from the WHO in China investigating the origins of the COVID outbreak says it does not appear to have been a leak from a lab in Wuhan, China, but was transmitted from an animal to humans. Among the businesses opening this week, Calabogie Peaks. The ski hill will open on Thursday after closing due to provincial orders around Christmas time. The owner of the Calabogie Peaks Ski Resort will be on with Rob Snow in the 11 o'clock hour to let us know if this season can still be salvaged. A couple of major cases in the province today. The second day of the Bhupinder Paul Gill and Gurpreet Ronald first-degree murder case. The pair being tied on the charge in the death of Gill's wife Jagtar in her Barhaven home in 2014. And Marco Muzo is before the parole board today. He is on day parole after a 10-year sentence was imposed for his drunk driving that killed a 65-year-old grandfather and 3 grandchildren. That was back in 2015. Senators will begin dealing with amendments today to a bill that could expand access to medical assistance in dying. Yesterday, they agreed to put Bill C-7 to a final vote by next Wednesday, but also signaled their intention to propose some substantial amendments. City News Time at 9:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Professor Ian Lee is here from Carleton University. Good morning, Professor. It's great to hear from you again.
Good morning, Rob. And just before we talk on our subjects, I just want to bring something up. My favorite guy, my team, the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, lost the Super Bowl. I want to acknowledge that because I thought he was going to clean Brady's clock. However, the point I just want to put on the table before we go to our topic is the next time any millennial talks to me or anybody about boomers being too old and time to step aside, I've got 5 words for them.
Okay.
Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowl rings. And he's 43, almost 44. That's like being 75 when you're teaching in the classroom.
Very impressive. Very impressive. No doubt. Yeah, he's like a fine wine. He just seems to get better with age.
I just can't imagine someone playing at 45. I even tell everybody, this is a game for 22-year-olds. He's 43.
Yes, he keeps himself in good shape.
He does.
Headline in the Financial Post this week by Martin Pelletier, who is a CFA, smart cookie, right? Chartered financial analyst, portfolio manager, Wellington Altus Private Counsel. So we're talking about, managing money for high net worth individuals, family offices, institutional investors, these kinds of things. He writes in the Financial Post that the vaccine rollout in Canada is actually putting the economy at risk because Canada is going to get leapfrogged by other economies because their countries are so far ahead of us on the vaccination rollout. Their economies are going to reopen a lot faster. And I want to know if you do you agree with that scenario?
I do. I mean, I don't think that that's the most condemning set of stats or data. I think that there's other things we can point to. Just very quickly, our long-term productivity has collapsed, and as any economist knows, including the Governor of the Bank of Canada, productivity is the only driver that will raise the standard of living over time. No matter what any progressive tells you, it is not, and it's not government spending. It's no other variable than the actual productivity rate, and it's collapsed in Canada. We're less than 1% now, and that just means if your productivity is not going up, your real standard of living after inflation is not going to increase, and that's what drove the standard of living for the last 70 years was incredible productivity increases. Setting that aside. Yes, I think he's correct that the countries that come out of the pandemic soonest are going to have a competitive advantage, if I can use that phrase, comparative advantage for the purists, over those countries that are still stuck back in the lockdowns and closing businesses and that sort of thing. And so they're going to have an advantage. They're going to come out of the gates first. And he specifically mentioned China. And China used brutal procedures to lock it down, lock down the economy, lock down the society to control it. But and I'm not advocating that. But they're growing like gangbusters now. And his point is simply that we're at the back of the bus. The Oxford University, which is nobody challenges Oxford, says that we are now ranked according to the 38th in the world, and there are several developing countries that are ahead of us who are doing so badly. And even more, I think, shamefully and disgracefully, the Prime Minister was dismissing people who are terrified of dying as just noise. And he said that on Friday. He said, these critics are it's just noise. In other words, people that are terrified of dying because they don't have the vaccine should be dismissed as just a bunch of whiners. And I just thought that was just reprehensible and shameful of the Prime Minister of Canada, of any Prime Minister. Doesn't matter if he's Liberal, Conservative, NDP. No one should talk like that, who's a leader. No one. I mean, that's as bad as Trump. That's Trump-type talk.
Oh, really? Okay. Just back to this Pelletier column to kind of drive home the point that he's making in the Financial Post. Many countries are sitting on a gold mine of household savings, he writes, right? And we've talked about that in the past year. The savings rate jumped up to 28% in Canada, right, when the economy was shut down. A gold mine of household savings just waiting to be deployed when their economies reopen. Something that depends on getting shots into arms. The countries that get those shots in first will have a chance to leapfrog us economically, getting a head start, not only domestically, but also getting first crack at the post-COVID global economy where they can increase their share of global trade, which could, and we're a trading nation. We rely on global trade. So, we could be in a whole world of hurt here, couldn't we, Professor?
I believe that. I mean, we are a trading nation. People may deny it, but this is from Foreign Affairs Canada, or Global Affairs Canada, as they call it now. 65% of our GDP is based on trade. That's 2/3. Now, that's by no means the highest in the world. There's countries in Europe that are much, much higher. Germany, I believe, is around 80-85%. There's some countries in Europe that are over 100%. Again, we are putting ourselves at great risk in our casual approach to the rollout of the vaccine, because yes, we will be behind those other countries, and they're going to take advantage. They're not going to feel sorry for us. We've already seen Biden has told us, no, we're not going to get special treatment, either on Buy American or on the vaccine, for that matter, getting additional supplies. So we've got to look after ourselves like these other countries are doing, and I don't see any sense of speed in the government of Canada in the rollout. And yes, there are, to your point, there is a huge amount of money sitting in Canadian banks. The Bank of Canada governor talked about this in the Monetary Policy Report just a week or two ago, and that's why I get so upset when the Prime Minister and the people are saying, calamity in Canada, large numbers of people have fallen over the cliff. This is a load of nonsense. The unemployment rate's 9%, 8% in Canada, 9%.
9.4 now.
Okay,
yeah.
That means 91% of Canadians are at work. And they're talking, depression, major recession. How on earth can any intelligent person who has a modicum, a tiny little bit of understanding...
it's still 2 million Canadians are unemployed.
I'm not trivializing it. I'm saying 91% of Canadians are at work. And there's several hundred billion in bank accounts. And we're saying, large numbers of people have fallen over the cliff. That's not true.
Okay.
It's simply not true.
All right, I don't want to get too off track, because there's other things I want to get into.
Right.
In this column, it says, including total debt, our country is currently at over 400% GDP.
Yeah.
Second only to Japan.
He is correct.
Wow.
He's looking at total indebtedness. That's government, consumer, and corporate indebtedness.
Okay.
And I'm not... I've said to you, I'm not. I don't get as excited about the aggregate as I do certain parts of that.
I mean, you've told me that you worry about government debt. You worry that provincial debt, because they're sub-sovereign countries. But you don't worry about things like mortgage debt, for example, because there are assets backing that up.
I'm not. 2/3 of the consumer debt. That's that famous $2 trillion.
Yeah.
That people say, and they say, "Oh my God, $2 trillion," and nobody talks about the other side of the ledger. Well, if you've got $2 trillion in debt, then that means you got some assets. And we, the people of Canada, this is Stats Canada data, January of this year, have over 13 trillion of personal assets. Now, 2/3 of it's real estate, for sure. And then I get the standard old line, yes, but it could collapse by 50%. It's never happened. Never. Not even in the Depression. So this nonsense that real estate's going to somehow vanish and become valueless or almost valueless, as if we're all going to live in a snowbank and vacate all of our homes in Canada, is, again, specious nonsense.
Well, it is getting pricey out there.
I'm not saying that there won't be an adjustment. I mean, so it goes down 5%. Big deal. So it goes down 10%. I'm just saying it's not going to, quote, collapse, where we're going to see it go down. Even in the States in 2009, first off, real estate did not go down in every state. It went down in about 5 states, and it did not go down by 50, 70, 80%. You can get cycles where it goes up and down. In Canada, historically, in my lifetime, when real estate becomes overvalued, what happens is the market goes flatline for several years, where it just doesn't go up at all. After I bought my house in 88, the market went flat for about 5 years in Ottawa, where the prices just didn't move. And that's how the markets adjust to over.
Well, it's moving now. It's moving like gangbusters now. Now, look, last week we touched on the prospect of higher interest rates. You said you thought higher interest rates would be coming. According to the chief economist at the Bank of Montreal, Doug Porter, in a note to clients this week, he said there's no free fiscal lunch, and that actually, when you look at what's going on with Government of Canada bonds, the bonds we sell in the bond market to the institutional investors, when you look at the interest rates on things like 10-year Government of Canada bonds and 30-year Government of Canada bonds, in fact, in the last year since they hit the lows in March, the rates on those bonds are higher, and they've moved dramatically higher in just the last week or so. And he is saying this is something the government has to pay attention to. The upward, quote, lurch in long-term borrowing costs is a reminder to all policymakers there is no free fiscal lunch. What does he mean by that, do you think?
Well, what he means is that when the demand becomes larger and larger for debt, that interest rates, people don't understand this. Interest rates, I mean, partly because economists, I think, confuse people because they use all kinds of jargon and so forth. Interest rates are set by supply and demand. Interest rates, I'll repeat that, are set by supply and demand. The reason we've had such incredibly low rates for the last 10, 15 years is because in the world, in the Western world, there was a huge excess of savings over the demand for the debt, because the boomers were in their peak earning years and were rolling up enormous amounts in aggregate. We were rolling up huge amounts of wealth, paying down our debts. Many boomers are mortgage free, and that created a huge surplus of funds, and that drove down the cost of borrowing. But that's coming to an end. As the boomers move into retirement, we'll start to spend their savings. Dis-savings is the ugly term used by economists. And at the same time that that's going on, governments are going into deep debt, not just in Canada, around the world. And so there are some very serious economists, such as the economist was advising the Bank of England, who's written 3 textbooks on monetary policy at the London School of Economics, and he argues it's inevitable that rates are going to increase because we're going to go from a surplus of funds globally to a shortfall of funds. In other words, supply-demand is going to reverse. So there's going to be more demand for this money than there is supply of the money, and that's going to force interest rates up. And Milton Friedman won a Nobel Prize 30-odd years ago for proving over 2,000 years in his economic history that whenever governments become deeply indebted, they deliberately inflate the economy and the money supply so that they can repay their gargantuan debts with inflated, cheaper money. And he won a Nobel Prize, so he's not some kind of a kook. And he said there's no exception. He said it didn't matter if it was a democracy or it was a military junta running the country. He didn't just study Western countries. He studied all the way back to, I think he went back to the Romans, if I recall.
Right. But I guess, I understand this, but I guess longer term, for the government of Canada is looking at a $400 billion deficit and $1 trillion debt. This complicates matters. When the Canadian 10-year bond reaches 1%, I know it's just 1%, but it was 44 basis points back in March, so it's a pretty big move, like 60 basis points, right? Yeah. Then and the 30-year moves up 10 basis points in a week and hits 1.6%. That's more interest payments on a considerable debt, which inevitably is going to leave less for social programs, for example.
And it's occurring when the economy is flat. Now, I don't want to say I'm never going to say it's a recession, but we've got parts of the economy that are locked down.
Yeah.
And imagine once the economy roars back to life eventually, that's going to drive that up even more so. And so it is, if interest rates, I'm not talking about going to 20%, as I experienced when I was at the Bank of Montreal in 1980.
In this era, though, these are considerable moves.
Well, let's say it goes from 1/4% to 5%. Now, 5% is not a gigantic interest rate historically. But if
historically, it'd be about the norm.
It'll be the norm.
Yeah.
And we've lived in this bubble, this unreal bubble of the last 15 years of world historically low rates, never experienced before in the last 500 years. And so there's policymakers, unfortunately, in the government of Canada are saying, they're going to stay like this forever, or at least for the foreseeable future. And I just don't believe that's the case.
Well, no, and the bond market doesn't believe that's the case. That's my point. It's already, the bond market is already doing its own price discovery, right? So, there you go. Okay, when we come back, I want to talk about the pandemic income relief programs, and I think the big write-off that is coming today with the Trudeau government set to announce that hundreds of thousands of people who collected the CERB, quote-unquote, in good faith, even though many of them likely weren't entitled to the CERB, the Trudeau government's about to say, forget about it, keep the money. I want your take on that. When we come back, Professor Ian Lee, Sprott School of Business at Carleton University, Rob Snow Show on City News.
No Nut Butter is a business where we make allergy-friendly spreads, so alternatives to peanut butter, Nutella, or those kind of things that kids and adults like to have on toast or on a banana or on an apple, and aren't really available to people with severe food allergies or allergies to the top allergens. When you're an allergy parent, you read every label because you need to know the details of every ingredient that's in the products that you're going to feed your kid. So we found that a lot of the products that we were looking at had may contain warnings, which we can't have, and had just so many ingredients in them that you don't know if there's a weird unknown ingredient that is kind of disguised under a different name. So we started No Nut Butter so that we would have the opportunity to have products that were safe and free from the top allergens and had really simple ingredients in them so that you would know exactly what you were feeding your kids. We make 4 different products at No Nut Butter. So we make a pumpkin seed butter, which is our alternative to peanut butter. So it only has pumpkin seeds, roasted pumpkin seeds, and some kind of oil in it. So we usually use corn oil or olive oil. And then we make what we call Choco Pumpkin, and it is our alternative to a chocolate hazelnut spread. So it is our pumpkin seed butter with our chocolate spread, so very much chocolate hazelnut spread. We make a coconut caramel, so it is coconut milk and sugar, and it is our kind of vegan option for caramel because typically caramel has lots of butter and dairy in it. And then we make an apple butter, which is apples and cinnamon and sugar, and that's it. We do also make a sugar-free pumpkin seed butter option because we have some diabetics and just some people who don't want sugar in their lives, and so we do offer that, but you'd have to custom order it. There are very strict rules around producing products, particularly nut-free products. You aren't allowed to cook in your own kitchen, which makes a lot of sense. If you have a dog, you don't want to cook in your own kitchen. But from a nut standpoint, it's just making sure that you have everything really clean and organized. So we cook all of our products in a commercial kitchen so that we can keep all of those health and safety procedures really tight and together. My personal business started a company called Shop Local Ontario during the pandemic, so we were pretty well equipped to go forward into the pandemic in a world of e-commerce and transacting online. You can find us online at nonutbutter.com, or you can find us on Facebook, No Nut Butter, or on Instagram at No Nut Butter.
Community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Professor Ian Lee is with us from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. He's with me every Tuesday morning. The Trudeau government appears set to announce that self-employed individuals who collected CERB payments in good faith, the government's term, in good faith, even though the CRA says they likely weren't entitled to them, they can keep the money. Not only that, but if they paid the money back, they can now call CRA and ask for the money to be refunded. At the same time, there's going to be an accompanying announcement that all the other pandemic relief program recipients who owe income tax on those benefits are going to have a 1-year tax debt holiday. No interest. 0 interest. What do you think, Professor? Pre-election goodies? What do you think?
Well, I think he's obviously pandering with that. But the larger issue, there's a very serious issue here, and the first is, let's deal with before we can get to the good faith, let's deal with the question of keeping money that you weren't entitled to. Believe it or not, this has been litigated many times for a very long period of time. I'm a former banker, albeit years ago, and it comes up where the bank has sometimes put money into in error. Made a credit to the customer's account, and it wasn't their money. The bank just screwed up and made a mistake. The court rulings on this are very, very clear. You do not have the right to keep money that you are not entitled to. And believe me, people have actually gone to court.
Well, what about finders, keepers, losers, weepers?
Well, that's one of those urban legends in the popular culture that doesn't apply in the real world of law and property rights. Okay? And so that's the first point, is that Mr. Trudeau seems to be trying to amend the rule of law, or the court ruling, that says you are not entitled to keep something that you are not entitled to.
Right.
In other words, it wasn't your money. But there's a larger issue here that's even more fascinating. And he said, well, if you in good faith thought you were entitled to it, it's okay. So it would seem that Mr. Trudeau is amending the Tax Act unilaterally by saying to all those people out there, look, you may have forgotten in good faith to declare some money, for example, on your taxes, but it's okay. You can keep that money and not even pay the taxes if you, in good faith, didn't plan to do that. If you weren't planning to cheat the government, then you don't have to pay the money. And this is, this has much broader application, and this is a much broader precedent than just CERB money or whatever the alphabet soup title is. If you're now introducing the principle that if you subjectively, in your subjective state of mind, thought you were entitled to the money, or you forgot to declare the money innocently. Hey, you're busy, you have a busy life. We've all got busy lives. Well, this must be terrifying the people at CRA, because how can you prosecute any kind of tax fraud? Person says, hey, I was innocent. I mean, I didn't.
It was all in good faith. It was all in good faith.
It was all in good faith. I'm just a busy guy, a busy person. Yeah. I'm working like a dog.
I was confused.
And hey, you can't prosecute me for cheating the government. The underground economy. Hey, I just forgot to pay my taxes. And cut me some slack. So this is going to legitimize all manner, I think. I know if I was prosecuted by the government for tax fraud of any kind, I'd be making this argument. I'd be telling my lawyers, I want this filed as a defense. So the Prime Minister said if it's in good faith, it's okay.
Yeah. To me, it's because the CRA has it's been this immovable object. It's been very firm. No, these are the rules. You don't understand. Gross income, net income. When you deal with the CRA and you're self-employed, we always deal in net income. We don't deal with gross income because you have your business expenses. Yeah. You have your deductions, right? That's why we deal with net income. So if you were confused, that's on you. It's not on us. Yeah. You know that when you deal with CRA, we're dealing in net income. Right. And for months and months, you could not shake the minister from that. Yeah. And all of a sudden, in advance of what many believe is going to be a spring election, you have the politicos coming along and saying, you know what? Forget about it.
We're going to rue the day.
We're 440,000 people got these letters from the CRA, Professor. It's big money, too.
And there's a fairness. Mr. Trudeau claims he believes in social justice and fairness, equity and not inequity and inequality. But what they've established is an inequality for those people who got money that they did not deserve, were not entitled to, and they're in a certain category, but all the other people in all the other categories that got money, and including people that just owe general taxes, no, we've got a different set of rules for them. Yeah. We're going to throw the book at you and go after you if you owe the government money or you misappropriated money and so forth. So what they're doing is they're creating almost two parallel systems. Those that are favored by the government, they will get special treatment. But this is a theme that's been running through this government for a long time. I can go to the Aga Khan, and that's not a conflict of interest. I don't have to declare it. But if anybody else does something unethical, we'll come after you. I can put my family on the books of we and then give them $1 billion contract, but nobody else can do that because that's not acceptable. And it's this sort of this double standard of almost, if you're in the favor of the government, then there's one set of rules, and if you're not, then there's another set of rules that's much more draconian. And I don't think that's, to use another phrase of Mr. Trudeau, I don't think that's a Canadian value.
Okay. Provocative as always. Thank you, Professor. Great to hear from you this morning.
My great pleasure.
Yep, that's Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Talkback Hour up next. Give me a call, 750-1310 on City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, February 9th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 12 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 9. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Well, happening now, the federal government holding a technical briefing just about to begin. We're expecting regulatory decisions on the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
We don't know for sure what is being discussed in this technical briefing. However, a week and a half ago, Health Canada said it would make a decision about the AstraZeneca vaccine within days. And the notice for this briefing says it's about the regulatory status of COVID-19 vaccines. The Health Canada website still shows the shot is under review. Now, if it does get the green light, this could make a big impact on Canada's vaccination efforts, with 20 million doses pre-ordered and another 1.9 million at least expected through the COVAX program. But there are some questions about this shot. While it's 90% effective against the main COVID strain, reports say it may be weak against variants, and South Africa has already suspended its use of the shot, given it may not work against the dominant strain in that country. There will surely be questions about supply as well. Our Pfizer and Moderna doses have faced serious delivery disruptions, and there may be concerns AstraZeneca could be hit by export controls in Europe as well. The Prime Minister set to speak in just over an hour. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time at 10:02. The head of the Paris-based Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is predicting rich countries could see their economy shrink by trillions of dollars if they don't do more to help poor countries get COVID-19 vaccines. Angel Courier's remarks at the virtual OECD forum came as aid organizations criticized the Canadian federal government for planning to take delivery of 1.9 million doses from the COVAX facility. That's the vaccine sharing program primarily designed to help poor countries afford vaccines, but it also did allow rich donor countries to receive some of those vaccines. A World Health Organization expert says the coronavirus is unlikely to have leaked from a Chinese lab. The assessment made by a WHO team investigating the possible origin of the virus in the central Chinese city of Wuhan. WHO Food Safety and Animal Disease expert Peter Ben Embarek says the virus is more likely to have jumped to humans from an animal.
It was very unlikely that anything could escape from such a place. And we also know that when lab accidents happen, they are, of course, extremely rare.
Now, the first cases of COVID-19 were discovered in Wuhan in December of 2019. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any light snow in your area will come to an end this morning. It's not an all-day event. Mainly cloudy, some sunny breaks. The high -5. That is the average high. Tonight, partly cloudy, -16. And tomorrow, sunshine, -7. For today, the high, -5.
And right now in Ottawa, -12. In Smiths Falls, it's -9 degrees. City News Time, 10:04. The slopes of Calabogie Peaks Resort will open on Thursday after the province announced plans to gradually ease pandemic restrictions amid the declining COVID-19 case numbers. Calabogie Peaks, one of 2 ski hills in the province that are allowed to open this week. We'll have more with the owner of Calabogie Peaks coming up on the Rob Snow Show next hour. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
I think we got a good one today. Forget about it. Forget about it. I want to know what you think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Keep the money, okay? Keep the money. We're talking $2,000 a month here. $2,000 a month for 7 months. Keep the money. Keep the money. Keep the money. The Trudeau government, this is according to a report in the National Post, the Trudeau government is set to announce self-employed individuals who collected CERB payments in good faith, even though many of them weren't entitled to that money in the first place. Trudeau government set to announce, hey, what? You know what? Forget about it. Forget about it. Keep the money. Keep the money. And hey, you know what? If you paid some of that money back, just call us. We'll pay you back. If they paid the money back, they can call CRA and ask for the money to be refunded. In addition to that, all the other pandemic benefit recipients who owe income tax on those benefits, 1 year debt holiday if you owe taxes. 1 year debt holiday and zero interest. Now, look, here's how I approach this. I think it's a pre-election goodie, a big-time gift. I think it's a pre-election goodie, historic proportions. I don't think it's right. But I want to know what you think. Am I on to something here? Or am I high on something here? Am I a mean-spirited Grinch? If that's what you think, by all means, call me and tell me, Rob, check your privilege at the door. You're a mean-spirited Grinch. 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. You think these might be election goodies? For the pandemic election, these two announcements from the Trudeau Liberals on pandemic income relief payments? First, you have the CERB and the self-employed. This is a huge flip-flop. A month ago, weeks ago, but for months and months and months on end, it was basically the line from the government was too bad, so sad. And now, look, they've gone and, they've gone and changed their minds, or they've had a change of heart, and now the same government is saying if you were self-employed and you collected the CERB that you probably weren't entitled to, well, you're off the hook. You're off the hook, and you can keep the money. We're not going to hound you to the ends of the earth looking to get that money back, which is, isn't that it's generous, and it's generous and a half. 750-1310, 750-1310. This a total reversal from the government's previous position, which was if you received a CERB payment that you didn't qualify for, we expect you to pay it back. And now they're just writing it off. Why would they do that? Gee, what do you think could cause them to have such a change of heart? Maybe it is the prospect of thousands of Canadians, tens of thousands of Canadians, hundreds of thousands of Canadians telling their stories to the media come this tax time, just around the corner, along with the election, causing CRA grief, CRA haunting them to the ends of the earth for ineligible CERB payments. Could that have something to do with it? At tax time that coincides with election time, could one possibly be connected to the other? What do you think? Here's the thing. When I first brought this up with you, my good listeners, and you remember that discussion that we had many months ago, I had a lot of sympathy for people in this predicament. You did not. You were the mean-spirited Grinches, as I remember. You did not have a lot of sympathy for self-employed individuals who claimed that they didn't know CRA's rules about gross income and net income. You said Rob, that doesn't add up. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't pass the smell test. Under the rules of CERB, recipients could qualify for those $2,000 monthly payments if they made at least $5,000 before taxes in either all of 2019 or in the 12 months leading up to the application. But some self-employed Canadians took that to mean gross income. In other words, before they deducted any expenses related to their businesses, and CRA said, no. No. That's not how it works. If you're self-employed. That's not how we roll with the self-employed. With the self-employed, when you deal with CRA, it's never been that way. When you deal with us, we deal with net income. What's left over after you deduct your business expenses. And most of you called me at the time or you emailed me about this, and you said, yeah, that's what it's like, Rob, when you work with CRA. And everyone who is self-employed should know that. And you didn't have a lot of sympathy for people who were in that situation, who were claiming to be confused, that CRA confused them or misled them. For example, this is how one person explained it to me. Let's say you have a David over there. He's got a little side gig. He's got a side hustle on, okay? Home-based business. David the dog walker. David sells used books. David sells arts and crafts, craft beer, whatever. Something. Pick your business.
Tell-all memos about Rob Snow.
Tell-all memoir. Hit hot off the shelves now. And he's grossing something like, whatever, $500 a month for his little side hustle. $500 a month. $6,000 a year, right? $6,000 a year for self-employed Dave. Well, these individuals say the wording on the CRA website made it sound as though Dave qualifies for the CERB. He made $6,000. Needed to make $5,000. Dave made $6,000 for the entire year. But that's not how things work if you're self-employed and you deal with the Canada Revenue Agency, because Dave is dealing with net income. First of all, if I'm going to spill the beans to Dave, Dave's got to give me half the money as a business expense, right?
That is in the contract, yep. You got me there.
So Dave didn't really make $6,000. He only made $3,000, which means Dave never qualified for the CERB.
Oh,
Dave didn't make enough money. But he applied anyway because the website confused him. Right?
I was never good with
And Dave, who had a side hustle and made $3,000 for the entire year, actually in net income from his self-employed side business, now qualifies for $2,000 a month. Now stop and think about that for a moment. You have a business, you're bringing in $500 a month from a little side gig. The government comes along and says, you know what? You qualify now for 4 times that amount. $2,000 a month. Wouldn't you think that's a lucky break for me? I'm bringing in $500 a month, and I actually had to work for it, and now I don't have to work for it, but I can make $2,000. Wouldn't you think I'm kind of putting one over on the government here? That's how it was explained to me. I, unlike Dave, have never been self-employed. So I had to have somebody explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. And for months and months and months, the Trudeau government, CRA, has maintained if you were self-employed, this excuse that you didn't know is not going to stand up. Now it's completely reversed itself and says you can keep the money. Not only that, but if you actually paid some money back, feel free to contact us and you will get back any money you paid back. Any money you paid back will be paid back to you. It is an incredible run of good fortune that some people have had, don't you think? Doesn't that make you wonder if there's an election on the way? 750-1310. It's the Talkback Hour, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. This announcement probably going to be made official today. Anne, good morning, Anne.
Hi. You know, listening to your show should come with a warning. This could be very dangerous for people with high blood pressure. This government is so incredibly shameful and shameless. This is nothing other than out-and-out bribery, and I wish that more people would realize the government has no money. If you don't have to pay this back, right, it means someone else has to. Sure. It means your children and your grandchildren are going to be paying taxes up their yin-yang for the next 30 years.
You think it's a pre-election goodie?
Yes, and I'm disgusted because of and of course they're doing this because of the terrible way the vaccine is being rolled out. And I'm going to tell you something.
Well, it's a great distraction too, because I'm not talking about vaccines right now, am I? Right?
No kidding.
No.
And what other hosts are either, right? It's all about this. Oh, isn't that great? All these people are going to get this free money. Don't you feel sorry for them? And I'll tell you something else that was occurring to me. If Stephen Harper was in charge of getting the vaccines, it would have happened. He would have just done it. because he was competent. He was a good leader.
Well.
He knew, okay, I could trust you.
Well, we'll see. Yeah.
But
I mean, it's hard to say, but I do think, people say, well, what would the Conservatives done if they were, in government at the time? Well, I'll tell you what the Conservative Party would not have done, or a Conservative government would not have done, and would not have done a 3-month tango with a Chinese company.
I know. Can I say one other thing, too?
No way.
I heard an interview with Scott Moe on Roy Green on the weekend.
Oh, okay.
And all the premiers are mad at the Trudeau government because what they asked was, gee, we're the ones who are going to have to actually administer the vaccines. So can we see the contracts so we know what's in them, so we know the dates and the amounts? They won't show it to them. What kind of a nonsense is that? That's ridiculous. What, 1 million is going to show up one day and then they're going to say, oh, the provinces, you're doing a terrible job of rolling them out. Meanwhile, they won't have told them when it's coming. This is nonsense.
Well, $2,000 may forgive a lot of sins.
Oh.
Ann, thank you.
I'm not getting anything. That's all I know.
All right, Ann, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Lines available there, folks. It's the Talk Back Hour. Take advantage of it. Be part of the fun here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store. A popcorn machine was in there. He didn't want it. I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started, and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. Sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, Rob Snow Show continues.
See, the Trudeau Liberals been getting hammered on the vaccine, right? Slow rollout of the vaccine. Some more information on that for you today, but this is a great diversion, a distraction, a changing of the channel. Let's start rolling out some pre-election goodies. For example, the public broadcaster, Catherine Cullen, reporting for the public broadcaster this morning, Quote, Canadians who receive pandemic benefits will have up to a year to pay back any debt from those benefits without interest, CBC News has confirmed. National Post also had this story. The interest relief will apply to Canadians who made up to $75,000 in taxable income in 2020 and received one of the federal government's 5 pandemic relief or employment insurance benefits. These pandemic benefits are the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, CERB, the Canada Recovery Benefit, CRB, which is CERB without the E, Canada Emergency Student Benefit, CESB, and the Canada Recovery Caregiver Benefit, CRCB, and the Canada Sickness Recovery Benefit, CRSB. As well, quote, the Canada Revenue Agency is expected to announce it won't claw back monthly or quarterly benefits such as the Canada Child Benefit or the GST HST tax credit to pay down outstanding debts. So, I think if you throw that into the mix, you and you're the Liberals, you have a potentially politically damaging problem laid to rest. Some people are off the hook entirely. People who collected potentially as much as $14,000 in CERB that potentially maybe some of them weren't supposed to collect at all. They're off the hook entirely, and the government is saying, whatever, just keep the money. Keep the money, keep the money, keep the money. And in fact, if you paid any money back, call us and we'll give you whatever you paid back, we'll give you that back. While some others, they're kicking the can down the road. They're off the hook for at least a year, and nobody from the Canada Revenue Agency is going to be bugging anyone on the phone who collected any of these benefits, at least for the next year and a little bit. They have called off the dogs, if you will. Because, look, if you're the Liberals, your whole image in the upcoming election is going to be what? And you hear it from these people all the time. The Justin Trudeau show's in about an hour from now from Rideau Cottage. What do you hear from these people? We have your back. Right? We have your back, whatever it takes, whatever it costs. We'll do it, spare no expense, all of it. Right? And those conservatives, you know the way they are. They're conservatives. You're a mean one. Rob Snow. Mean-spirited. They don't care about you. If the conservatives were running the show, you'd be out in the cold. You'd be living in the street already. So the one thing the Liberals don't need in the weeks and the months ahead, because they're going to call an election, is people suffering from sticker shock, crying on the CBC because they've just done their taxes. And they're really sticking it to the NDP at the same time, really shoring up that left flank. Quite a suite of pre-election goodies. We have a CERB tax debt before the election. We'll worry about that after the election. Don't worry about that now. We'll worry about that after the election. You can pay us back after the election. Self-employed and collected the CERB that you weren't even entitled to in the first place. Well, don't worry about it. Keep the money. And if you've paid us back already, just call us and we'll pay back whatever it is you paid back. It would be our pleasure to do that right now. And remember, at election time, we're all in this together. Right? We are all in this together. We sure are. We're all in something, I'll tell you what. Sam, Ottawa. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Rob. If you're the Grinch, I will be your friend no matter what.
Okay. You'll be like that little dog that drives the sled, right? Okay.
I'll join you on the
We're on our way to Whoville. We're on our way to Whoville, okay?
Honestly, Rob, come on. You can't get vaccines on time, so this is what, the backup plan? We don't pay back the CERB.
Yeah.
What about, okay, we go to election, Liberals win a majority. What now? Are they going to turn around and say, oh, we really need that CERB money back, and now they're a majority government, they could implement that? There's a lot of scary aspects to it. I think it's wrong entirely. They keep going back and forth on this. It makes no sense. I think this is just, where are we going to get the whole this money from?
Sam, just at the heart of it here, let's say someone collected the CERB and they knew they weren't supposed to get it. Should the government be going after someone like that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. If you knew, you knew. And I could tell you, you know what I mean? I just owned a couple people in my hometown in Pembroke, and, you know, who've done it and been like, oh, yeah, I got the CERB money. And I'm like, why? You work full time. You know?
Well, I'd like to know how they pulled that off.
And it's just like, holy mackerel, you know what I mean? I'm not about it. Not about it. Anyways.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Irene. Good morning, Irene.
Hi. There's just a few things I'd like to bring up. I remember listening to an interview by Tom Mulcair about 7 or 8 months ago when he said Trudeau will call an election when the bills are starting to come in.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there was another thing I'd like to bring up is at one point we heard people who made over $200,000 a year were actually getting it. And I kind of wonder if his mother and his brother got it because of they lost their gig with
Okay. I don't know.
But I mean, and then there are, I'm kind of wondering too, how many people, frontline workers who worked during this pandemic are going to be ticked off when they see their neighbors just getting all this money sitting at home. That might tick a lot of people off if they don't have to pay, whereas these other frontline workers had to pay for daycare and everything because the schools were closed. It's just creating two different types of it's just going to divide people. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is this will make a darn good attack ad for the Protecting Canadians group when they go after the Conservatives.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Protecting Canadians. Protecting Canadians. We've halftime. David's hauling us off the stage here because it's halftime. Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show on a Tuesday morning. We're back in just a few minutes on City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, February 9th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 11 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 8. And here's what's making news this hour. New numbers just released from Ontario Health show 1,022 new cases of COVID-19 today. 25 of them are in Ottawa. Both Leeds, Grenville, Lanark and Renfrew have no new cases to report, and there's just one additional case in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Now, the province is also reporting another 17 deaths from COVID-19. Of the new cases, 343 are in Toronto, 250 are in the Peel region. Ottawa shelters dealt with COVID-19 outbreaks recently, and the city's top doctor says steps are being taken to address the spread there. Dr. Vera Etches says she is confident the situation at shelters is under control thanks to the work of the city's community partners. We'll have more on this story with City News reporter Alex Gouge coming up at 11 o'clock. Update from Health Canada was not to do with another approved vaccine for our country, but a clarification on the number of Pfizer doses in each vial. Health Canada agrees with both Pfizer and BioNTech that you can get 6 doses out of each. The label will now indicate that. A World Health Organization expert says this coronavirus is unlikely to have been leaked from a Chinese lab. The assessment made by a WHO team investigating the possible origin, the food and safety and animal disease expert with WHO says the virus is more likely to have jumped to humans from an animal. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
We're talking about the CERB, ill-gotten CERB, forgiven apparently to be announced later today by the Trudeau government. This ongoing controversy of people who are self-employed received the CERB. There were threats of class action lawsuits, and apparently the minister responsible for this, Qualtrough, is going to announce today, you know what, forget about it. Just keep the money. In fact, if you tried to pay us back, if you paid us back, just call us. Call us here at the Canada Revenue Agency, and we will return to you whatever you have paid back. How about that for a big pre-election goodie? As well, vaccines. I don't want to let up on vaccines, but I do want to direct you. This is such an interesting tool that you can use on the internet. I don't know if it's eventually going to be paywalled. So much of the Bloomberg News stuff is paywalled. But I spent some time this morning getting lost in this thing that's out there. The Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker. Have you played around with this thing, David? It's pretty cool, let me tell you. And depressing and depressing at the same time. The Bloomberg News Vaccine Tracker. It's very cool. As you know, up until now, I've been relying on Our World in data, which I also enjoy quite a bit. Lots of data that we can use to compare how we're doing in Canada compared to other countries, right? How we're doing in Canada compared to the other countries. Now, the latest data from the Public Health Agency of Canada is not up to date at all. It's only accurate as of January 5th, which was last Friday. But according to the Public Health Agency of Canada, so far in Canada, and remember, we're on track. Mr. Trudeau says we're on track. 2.29% of the population has received at least one dose of vaccine. A whopping 0.3% of the population has received 2 doses of vaccine. 0.3% of the Canadian population, 2 doses of vaccine. 2% of the population has only received 1 dose. 10.8% of adults over the age of 80 have had at least 1 dose. 52% of healthcare workers have had at least 1 dose. 48.25% of adults living in group settings like long-term care homes have received at least 1 dose. That's from the Public Health Agency of Canada. And the total number of doses given, just individual doses, total round number, according to Our World in data, in Canada is 1.04 million. Now, hopped over to this Bloomberg Vaccine Tracker this morning, kind of got lost in it for like an hour or so. It says that the United States has now administered 43 million doses of vaccine. 43 million doses of vaccine. And these are the individual American states, the individual U.S. states that have administered more doses than all of Canada. In order: California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, North Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, Virginia, and New Jersey. 12 U.S. states More shots than all of Canada. But this is the interesting part. This vaccine tracker has a whole section called The Path to Immunity. Doesn't that sound great? The Path to Immunity. And it works from the assumption that 75% of the population has to be vaccinated in order for a population to achieve herd immunity. 75%. Totally vaccinated, okay? We're talking 2 doses of vaccine. And it says, as of this morning, the world is on track to hit that 75% target. It's going to take 6.6 years. Globally, 6.6 years. Kind of depressing. 6.6 years. But then you can go through each individual country. There's a drop-down menu. How long will it take each specific country to achieve that herd immunity level, 75%? In Israel, 2 months. 2 months from now. Herd immunity in Israel, 2 months. The rest of the world, 6.6 years. In Israel, 2 months. In the UK, 6 months. In the United States, 10 months. In Canada, are you ready for this? At current vaccination rates, 8.5 years. Not months, years. 8.5 years.
We are on track.
On track. Everything's on track. On track. The United States could achieve herd immunity by the end of this year, if it keeps up this pace. By December, 75% of Americans fully vaccinated here in this country at the rate we're going. And it's just data, okay? Just data. Bloomberg makes a living compiling data and then selling it. It says in this country at the rate we're going, it will take until the summer of 2029 before 75% of the Canadian population is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. We have a better chance of being net zero on carbon emissions.
We planned accordingly.
Stop it. 8.5 years. 8.5 years. 8.5 years. Prime Minister keeps saying, oh, you'll be able to get a shot by September if I want one. One will be available. And some people have already been joking. Was September of what year, Mr. Prime Minister? You know, maybe it's not a joke after all. 8.5 years. In France, 3 years. Germany, 2.8 years. Spain, 2.5 years. Italy, 2.8 years. You know, India, 10 years. But India has 1.3 billion people to vaccinate. Hey, at least we'll be done before them. Poland, 2.7 years. Slovenia, 2.7 years. I'm going to Slovenia. They have their act together over there. And Melania is from Slovenia. Don't make any plans for Canada Day 2029, okay? Cancel Canada Day 2029. Somebody might be calling. Your vaccine might be available by then. 8.5 years. I'm sorry to be a Debbie Downer, but I wanted to get that out there. It's information. Knowledge is power. James, Riverside South. Good morning.
Morning.
Yep. Doesn't that cheer you up, James? Doesn't that cheer you right up to hear that?
Well, I'll come with you to Slovenia.
Okay. I think if we're allowed to travel by then, James, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just want to say it's a real kick in the gut to honest people, right? Just in terms of what they're doing with this, I guess, this ruling on CERB.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I could have gotten it because of how I'm paid, or I think at least 12,000 of it, and I didn't claim it because I knew money's coming in at this time and this time.
Yep.
And you know, I didn't take it obviously because you're supposed to be honest about things, right? And
yep.
I think this just encourages people to kind of try and skirt the rules, right? It's, you know, you can play around with your taxes if you want. I don't. I literally pay everything down to the dollar.
Sure.
Right? And the CRA will still challenge you and go after you, right?
Well, I mean, the CRA has held firm from day one. The rules are clear that if you are a self-employed individual, we don't deal in terms of gross income. Okay, we deal in terms of net income, and that makes sense because you run a business. If you're running your own business, you're going to have all kinds of expenses, right? Your sales are not your income, right?
And everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that. It's not even up for discussion, and that's CRA has been telling Canadians that's our position, that's our position, that's our position. But now it's not politically a convenient position to have because you have 440,000 people who are getting letters saying, well, you may owe us money come tax time and you may want to plan accordingly, right?
And now they're saying, I guess, that you don't have to pay taxes on some payments this year, right?
If you have a tax debt, you will not have to pay it for at least a year and no interest, which is a big change of heart from the CRA when it comes to their interest penalty, which usually starts being calculated, I believe it's calculated daily the day after the tax deadline.
Yeah, the CRA's never run a tab for me, so that would be
never
nice
run a tab for me. No.
It's 10% right away.
Yeah,
and then I think it's 1% a month after that.
Something like
so
that. Yeah.
It's right away 10%. So it's just it's just not it's I guess people. I don't want to say people.
But doesn't that tell you something, James? Doesn't that tell you that there's an election coming?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And they're just trying to redo their facts, right? Like. And again, I heard on the news 6 doses. We've agreed that each vial. So we ordered a number of vials.
That's right. Yes.
With 5 doses. Now they're saying it's 6 doses. So
now Pfizer wants the government here, wants countries all over the world to try and squeeze 6 out of them.
Right. So they're just we're not getting the number of vials that we ordered, and they're saying that we're getting what we've ordered. It's just. They seem to they try and rewrite the facts after I guess the game's been played, right? Just in terms of the serve and then the number of doses. So anyways, that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Always appreciate your show and your time.
I appreciate that. Very, very kind of you to say, sir. In Canada, Steve. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi, Steve.
I'm going to get to what I call in a second, but this thing about Pfizer getting 6 doses reminds me of like when they made cereal boxes a little thinner so that they could ship you less product. Maybe in the opposite way. That makes me laugh. So have you ever heard of Hanlon's razor? No, it's one of these rules, that they say never attribute to malice that which you can adequately explain by ignorance or stupidity.
Okay.
And I know that the government has more than its fair share per capita compared to the private sector of stupidity, but I do think that this is electioneering, and so I mean, in a nutshell, what I'd like to do is say that because it's an election goodie, they're not really being malicious. They're actually trying to be a savior or a benefactor to the masses. So I'm coming up with my own razor, Rob.
Okay.
And I'm going to call it Libertarian Steve's razor.
All right. Okay.
Never attribute to benevolence that which you can adequately explain by desire for political gain. And this, you can apply this to all parties, not just the Liberals, but obviously in this case, I mean, it happens so often.
This is very forgiving, Steve. I mean, this is $880 million a month worth of forgiveness multiplied by 7 months. That is, eventually you're starting to talk about real money.
They're forgiving, but did you not say at the beginning that they're forgiving for a year, or they're delaying payments for a year?
Tax debt will be forgiven, not forgiven, but
holiday,
deferred.
Right?
Yeah, a tax holiday for a year.
What's that going to do next year when you got to pay twice as much tax?
Well, it's interest. It'll be interest-free, they said, right?
So. Yeah, but you're still going to have to pay twice as much. All of a sudden, your debt is a lot more to the government.
Okay, well, we'll see.
And then they'll start taxing you at that 10% or high rate that gentleman mentioned. It is a higher rate because when I was a private contractor, I got myself in a little bit of tax trouble, and I paid it back to the government at a crazy tax rate that was going back 15 years or so ago. So, yeah, I think that they're just being it's a complete electioneering. I completely agree with you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, always a great call from him. Up next, Rodney, you're going to have to wait. David tells me you have to wait until after the break. Won't be long, 2-3 minutes. We'll be right back. City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our centre the Ottawa Good Food Box as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighbourhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
Phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
All right, Rodney, I'm sure you're worth the wait, Rodney. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm hoping I'm worth the wait. And then I phoned to talk to you about the CERB payments and repayment, but you sort of got me a little bit distracted with your herd immunity in the States.
Yeah.
And I just think I need to clarify some of that for you.
You're going to clarify it for me, okay?
Well, information I've heard of. There is approximately over 100 million people in the States that do not want to get vaccinated.
Right.
That's going to affect Canada.
Okay.
And that was verified for me in news stories. 2-3 weeks ago, there was a mobile vaccine group that got caught in a snowstorm in Utah on an interstate highway. Their vaccine was about to expire. They had 6 doses they wanted to give out. They went in traffic, and all the cars that were stuck, they knocked on 40 car windows before they were able to find 6 people that wanted the vaccine.
Oh, okay.
So that's a little information. But
well, yeah, I know. I guess with this Bloomberg vaccine tracker, they're basically just using the math, right? We're doing this many doses per day. There are this many people in the country. It will take this long to vaccinate 75% of the population, right? So at those rates, and we can all take into account, I suppose, these caveats. Well, how many anti-vaxxers are there? How many people are vaccine hesitant and all of this stuff?
We'll work through on that.
The fact is, in the United States, they could be done in 10 months. Here, it could take, at current rates, 8.5 years.
Here it's going to take a long time because there's going to be a huge amount of time wasted. Right across the country, telephone lines are going to be blocked. And
And the organization of putting out the vaccine needs to be done this year for next year. You know, this year we're caught in a terrible situation. But did you want to talk with me about the CERB?
Yes, sir.
I ended up repaying the CERB.
Repaid the CERB?
I repaid the CERB. I've argued with politicians, and I've actually come up with a little catch.
Why did you repay it?
Because I got a letter demanding that I pay it back.
Okay.
And
are you self-employed, Rodney? Are you self-employed?
I'm self-employed.
Well, according to the news in the National Post today, Krista Bernardi's story says they are going to announce today that if you paid it back, you should call the CRA, and I would recommend you do this today, Rodney, because apparently it's your money. You paid them back. They say whatever you paid back, just call the CRA, and they'll send you a refund.
I'll be waiting a few days, but I actually wanted to point out like a little catch that media hasn't really sort of caught on to.
All right, give it to me. Yep.
Of CERB. So I'm self-employed. I have expenses, and one of those expenses prior to 2019 was hiring people. I decided 2019 not to hire people because I was just fed up with the people that I had to train. I had to work for free. I had to think of that I worked for free for a week or two showing and training people that didn't last very long that quit.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
So I didn't hire people, but in 2019, if I had hired somebody for 8 weeks and they would have got $5,000, you know, they would have got CERB because they...
Sure, and they could have collected CERB for 7 months and made $14,000.
Yeah, and they would have got $14,000. But in the meantime, I'm getting cut from CERB because I ended up, you know, being scratched.
Gotcha.
You know?
I'm going to pay attention to the news today, Rodney, because Carla Qualtero is going to say, if you paid the CERB back, well, you're a sucker, Rodney, and all you need to do is call them, and they'll say, all right, Rodney, we're giving you a refund. Forget about it. Keep the money, Rodney. Okay? That's apparently what they're going to announce today, according to the Post. Stittsville, Trevor, good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, sir.
Just in regards to this CERB forgiveness type of stuff, it's a big kick in the gut to, I would think, all these essential workers that have been out here, especially people in healthcare, for the last year, going home and working such long days, seeing all the devastation that's happening in hospitals and such, and the government really hasn't given them a thing.
Yeah. Plus, you know, I think
a pat on the back.
Sure, and I think about people who never missed a day's work, who work at whatever Metro or Loblaws or Sobeys or Esso or Petro-Canada or any of these places where they have these essential jobs and minimum wage jobs. Never collected the CERB, went to work every day.
And these big companies that collected large ones, for instance, $100 million and ended up paying them out in dividends.
Oh yeah, or you know, there are some big companies, particularly big companies who run long-term care homes. We know the situation there, who collected wage subsidies, had terrible living conditions in their long-term care homes, and not only did they pay out dividends, but they raised the payout of the dividends to their shareholders. And grocery store companies who brought in hero pay for their workers, then took it away, reported record profits, and then raised the dividend for their shareholders. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff.
We're all in this together, Rob.
Yeah, we're all in it together. Kumbaya around the campfire. Pat in Brockville. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just have a question.
Okay. I'm better at asking questions and answering them, but go ahead. All right.
I qualified for the CERB, but I didn't apply for it because I wasn't in an emergency situation, and I assumed that these funds were for people that actually needed the money to put food on the table.
Sure.
I didn't think it was a big Canadian windfall. But anyways, can I go back and claim it retroactively?
Don't think so. I don't think it works that way. Oh, I know. It just
I'd like to say I understood it to be emergency funds.
Yes.
Not a big windfall.
Yes.
Where you could.
You see, maybe you and I are just kind of old-fashioned, Pat. But we don't mind paying taxes. We don't mind helping people out who really need the help.
Exactly.
Right? Who really need the help. But
yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, we're Canadians. We're a charitable lot. But it's very clear. Anyone who has any history, if you're self-employed dealing with CRA, that they don't deal in gross income. It's always been net income when you deal with CRA, and 440,000 people were caught up in this, collecting CERB that they quite likely were not entitled to. There's been quite an amount of toing and froing on this, and the civil servants at CRA have been sticking to their guns, saying the rules were clear all along. If you deal with CRA, we only deal in your take-home pay after your business expenses. It's always been that way. And here we go again. It's another case of the Trudeau government throwing its civil servants under the bus for political purposes. That's what this is. Because there's an election coming and they don't want sad stories in the news media about people having to pay back tens of thousands of dollars in CERB payments during a pandemic. It is as plain as the nose on Eric's face. Eric in Barrhaven. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, sir.
The Liberals must consider this to be the vaccine issue to be quite the existential crisis, because they're turning cartwheels trying to get that out of the news cycle.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And inadvertently they brought it back in with this Health Canada announcement this morning. So I think this is purely a ruse. It's a very expensive ruse for this country to waive all of these fees and in fact let you apply to get something you paid legally back illegally. I find that interestingly funny. But the other point that was made today, you made the announcement earlier that Health Canada has said, okay, now instead of 5 doses per vial, the label's going to be changed to 6.
Yes.
So it would seem to me that there should be a mighty uproar, because I don't know how many vials we have. I think there were 800,000 or something, but which we got five doses from, when we should have gotten 6.
Yes.
So we've literally thrown a huge chunk of Pfizer and other vaccines right into the garbage. And I'm wondering how they're going to explain that away.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess we'll find out. We wait with breathless anticipation, because the Justin Trudeau show starts live from Rideau Cottage in about 15 minutes' time. 11 o'clock news is coming up on City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, February 9th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 11. In Smiths Falls, minus 8 degrees. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Canadian health professionals will soon be pulling more doses from the vials of Pfizer vaccine thanks to a labeling change that has been approved by Health Canada. Still no decision yet on the AstraZeneca shot, which we felt might be coming. The approval from Health Canada today. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with the latest.
Health Canada now says health professionals will be able to pull 6 doses from the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine instead of the previous 5. Vaccine vials often have extra in them to ensure there's enough for a proper extraction. And weeks ago, the drug maker and some of our allies discovered you could get 1 extra dose per vial. However, to do this, Dr. Supriya Sharma with Health Canada says a special syringe is needed.
A low dead volume syringe is designed to have a lower volume of liquid that stays in the hub of the syringe after the vaccine is administered. This minimizes the loss of vaccine volume per vaccination.
Canada has ordered millions of these syringes, and this week, I believe 2 million are arriving and being distributed. Health professionals need to be updated on the change and trained on the syringes before the extra doses are used. Officials say the change does not change the effectiveness of the shot. This change will go a long way to eliminating any vaccine waste and will help Pfizer hit its goal of 4 million doses to Canada before the end of March. Health Canada still has not approved the AstraZeneca vaccine, despite the regulator saying a week and a half ago that a decision was coming within days. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:03. New numbers from Ontario Health showing 1,022 new cases of COVID-19 today. 25 of them are in Ottawa. Both Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and Renfrew reporting no new cases today. There is 1 additional case in the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. The province also reporting another 17 deaths from COVID-19. 343 of the new cases today are in the Toronto region, 250 in Peel. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Any light snow in your area will come to an end this morning. It's not an all-day event. Mainly cloudy, some sunny breaks. The high, -5. That is the average high. Tonight, partly cloudy, -16. And tomorrow, sunshine, -7. For today, the high, -5.
And right now in Ottawa, -11. In Smiths Falls, it's -8 degrees. After the shelter system in our city dealt with COVID-19 outbreaks recently, the city's top doctor says steps are being taken to address the spread of the virus within the system. Here's City News reporter Alex Gouge.
Medical Officer of Health Dr. Vera Etches says surveillance testing is being conducted, which continues to discover new positive cases within a pool of higher-risk individuals. Those who test positive are isolating to prevent further spread, while OPH conducts tracing. The doctor explains there are still services available for those who need a place to go.
For people who still need shelter tonight, next week, the city is still using the usual process. Call 311. There's an intake worker will be assigned, and again, work through what that person needs and the options are available.
Dr. Etches adds she is confident the situation in the shelters will be under control thanks to the work of the city's community partners. Alex Gouge, City News.
City News Time, 11:04. Mary Wilson of the 60s trio The Supremes has died at the age of 76.
The world is stopping to remember Motown great Mary Wilson. A publicist says she died suddenly, and it comes just days after the Motown group with lead singer Diana Ross marked its 60th anniversary. In 2014, Wilson looked back.
We came from a time when, as black people, you didn't dream about becoming a star. You didn't dream about making money. It was all about being a human being, being respected, being equal.
Mary Wilson was 76 years old. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
And I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The province is going to begin the gradual reopening of the economy starting tomorrow in a select few regions. The Premier says that the state of emergency that was declared last month is going to be allowed to expire as scheduled tonight. Stay-at-home order is going to remain in effect until regions gradually transition back to the government's color-coded restriction system over the next 3 weeks. We're going to focus now on one of the hardest hit industries and what all of this new news means for Ontario's restaurants. James Rilett joins me now. He's in Thornhill, and he is with Restaurants Canada. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Very nice to hear from you, sir. What is your reaction to the announcement yesterday from Premier Ford?
Well, to be honest, we were a little disappointed. We'd been working with the government to try and get some loosened restrictions on restaurants. I think what we've seen in other jurisdictions, particularly BC, you can have restaurants open in certain levels and still open responsibly and give people an option. So we were disappointed, but we'll just keep going on and hopefully they'll change their mind.
Okay. So what were you hoping to see that you didn't see then?
Well, what we wanted to see was somehow give restaurants an opportunity to open a little more than they had been previously. Okay. In the red zone, you're only allowed 10 people, and that's not really anyone's able to open at all with only 10 people. So we would have liked to see that higher, maybe do the same thing as retail and have a capacity of 25%, or only people in their own family bubble can come in, and that's what they've done in other areas. We'd hope that the government would be creative like that, but there's still a chance that we can seek changes for that.
Okay, so actively, say, lobbying for changes?
Yeah.
Would you describe it that way, Mr.?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. We're talking to the government every few days, and
right. And what's that pitch like? What's that pitch like?
Well, we're looking at other jurisdictions, showing how they've done it responsibly. BC's done it very well. Some of the Atlantic provinces, even when their numbers went up, they kept restaurants open. It gives people an alternative thing to do. Excuse me.
Right.
To get out instead of congregating at their homes or parties.
Oh, are you with me there, sir?
Sorry, I just was coughing. I apologize.
Okay, that's okay. Sorry. At live radio, it happens all the time. Okay, so you get, but I want to get a little more into the selling point. Say, what would be some of the benefits of actually going to a restaurant dining room as opposed to the current situation right now? Curbside or doing the delivery thing or having a meal at home, for example.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing now is people are just getting lockdown fatigue. They want to get out and about, and what they're doing when they want to get out and about is they're going to friends' houses. They're cheating a bit and say, I'll go see some family and we'll get together, and it's unsupervised. They're probably not wearing masks. They're probably not keeping social distance. So what we're saying is if it's a controlled environment like a restaurant where the staff is making sure you're following all the rules and as long as you're staying in the same family bubble, that it can safely be done. And we've seen that in other places. So, the lockdown fatigue is going to be a big issue. And we think we can play a part in helping people to get through this.
Okay. Also, there's the collecting of names and phone numbers for contact tracing and these kinds of things, right?
Yeah, that's they keep the contact tracing. It's being done now. A lot of restaurants have either signed on to apps or created their own apps that do all the contact tracing. And so, if there was an issue, the health unit can just come to them and they'll transfer the data, and it's very little work to do.
Okay. In provinces where there is indoor dining, what's the demand for that kind of service been like? What are you hearing from member restaurants?
The demand's good. It's you're restricted because your capacity is a lot lower. Yeah. But people are coming through. People are happy to get out, and we've seen in places that have had allowed it, and we're not seeing the outbreaks. And but you are also seeing lower cases of spread in homes where people are congregating. So Yeah, people want to get out. People want to socialize. They want to pretend things are normal, at least for a little while. And that's really been a selling point, and that's people really seem to be getting out and into the restaurants.
What is the current state of the industry in Ontario right now, sir?
It's pretty bad.
Pretty bad, like dire.
Every day of more people shutting down, and it's been dire for a while. But I think when the Christmas season was a write-off, that's what a lot of people always look forward, even in a regular year. It's the Christmas season is what gets you through the long winter months.
Yes.
And
so this would normally be a quiet time of year anyway, right?
Yeah, this would be normally quiet anyway, but they've accumulated a lot of debt, and they don't really have the cushion to get through January and February.
So the clock is ticking. In terms of government assistance programs, how effective are they at this point? I mean, we're 11 months into this now, right? So,
yeah, you know, they've been good. The wage subsidy particularly has been a good program. The changed rent subsidy program has worked as well as it can. But, you know, there's a lot of monthly expenses that a restaurant has that aren't included beyond rent and taxes. You've also got your snow clearing, you have your general maintenance, pest control. There's a lot of expenses that are going out the door with no revenue coming in. So we're particularly seeing people that don't have a large takeout and delivery side. They're only bleeding money, and any savings they've had have long since evaporated.
Are larger chain restaurants necessarily more insulated in this current environment?
Yes and no. We're seeing a lot of chain restaurants consolidating.
Okay.
They're closing some low-performing restaurants.
Right.
They have the ability. They don't have to close everything, but you will see a lot of chains closing, maybe 1 in 5, or a few. If there's 2 or 3 in a neighborhood, one of them might disappear. So you will see consolidation in that side of the industry, but it's definitely the independents that are feeling it the most. And we expect about half of independents are teetering around the bridge on the brink right now and could close before we get reopened.
Okay. Thank you for your time this morning. Best of luck to everyone, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah. James Rilett is the Vice President of Restaurants Canada. Coming up next, a little bit more on the food service industry and how Uber Eats is making life difficult for its couriers. We will speak to Toronto Food Courier and spokesperson with Gig Workers United about the Uber Eats pay cuts. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It was devastating, and it's devastating to all small business, but not knowing where it was going to go. But then the renovation market, as people stayed home, took off like wildfire. And for us, yes, we're very lucky, very fortunate that we were able to turn things around. I think a lot of it had to do with our internet presence as well, that I was, kept working on over years, and then it kind of took off. So that was very positive. But now, no, people are staying at home. We're renovating different markets, whether it's a kitchen or a backyard or, your fireplace. They want to cozy things up. So yes, things are extremely busy right now. Right now it's fireplaces, and I think with the snowbirds, a lot of those clients have existing wood fireplaces, so they're looking at inserts. So they want to convert the wood to gas. They don't want to deal with the wood part of it, but they want it clean and easy and efficient, and that's been a major, major increase in our business. The cottage and chalet market has really increased, absolutely. We see that people, that's their staycation now, is either the backyard or their cottage with their close bubble of family. So there's no question that we've seen a big, big increase in that area as well. I've seen a change in the backyard because now the staycation, from my past, being in the pool business, one of our great clients was in the other day, and he's in the pool business. He's booking for 2022 for in-ground pools, okay? So I think what's happened now is that's brought everybody back home, and I think maybe down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're still going to see people spending time in their backyards and staying home more. The barbecue area, really, we call it the backyard. So you walk out of your house into a backyard, and it kind of looks like that with the fencing and the sky and things like that. So that is just our fun room. It's just, there's a lot of cool gadgets there that has to do with dealing with charcoal and wood pellet barbecues. To go online, you're going to find, you just Google, romantic fireplaces will come up. The one nice thing about our work is that when the Google reviews and the Google pictures are phenomenal. We're uploading stuff every day. I have at least 1,000 jobs, real jobs that you can take a look at, either on the Google pictures on the drive, or if you go to our website at romanticfireplaces.com and click on Our Work. It's where we used to load lots of them up, but there's lots of pictures there too. But the great thing about that is they're real. There's testimonials there about people talking about our team. And our team here is unique to everybody else. It's two small teams, but these fellas work for me. They're our guys. So when they go into your home, they care as much about your house as you do.
Opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
The Prime Minister doing a news conference any minute now from Rideau Cottage. We will be listening in to whatever he says today. Uber Eats couriers working in Ontario say they're earning as little as, are you ready for this, $3.99 per trip before tips. This is months after the food delivery service implemented a new pay policy in the middle of this pandemic, a new pay policy. To speak to this issue, we're joined this morning by Narada Kiondo, a Toronto food courier, also with Gig Workers United. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm
Thanks
good.
for having me.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from you. Do you work as a courier for Uber Eats?
Yes. I currently work for Uber Eats, Skip the Dishes, and DoorDash, and I've been doing food delivery work since 2016.
Okay. How accurate is this? As little as $3.99 per trip before tips. I was shocked to read that in a news report this week in the Canadian press. Is that your experience, sir?
Yeah, it's super accurate. It's also hard to tell because Uber's pay structure, when it changed, they've sort of, like before the new pay structure changed, they've sort of told you exactly what you're getting paid for what you're doing. So if you're doing a certain number of kilometers, you're getting paid per kilometer. Okay. And with the new change, they sort of scrubbed all that and hid it behind a black box and only paid you up front. So it varies. But yeah, there are times it can even be less than $3.99 a delivery. And just to make it clear, I would say the average courier does 3 deliveries an hour. So at $3.99, that's about $12. Yeah.
Yeah. So less than minimum wage.
Yeah. And that number actually goes down depending on if you're doing two deliveries at once, and and if you're working off peak or not working downtown. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because some people, if they're making a trip and it's all in the same general area or whatever, or on the same route, they might stop at typically 2-3 places maybe along the way sometimes, right?
Yeah,
and at least one other stop sometimes is not unusual, right? On a trip.
It's not unusual, but Uber also deems a second stop as not as worth it as one single trip. So the second stop always pays less, but you're still taking as much time waiting in the restaurant and delivering to a condo building. That doesn't really reduce any of the time that you're doing this delivery.
Right. So, for those not in the know, what changed with the pay policy at Uber Eats?
It was a decision. I think they rolled it out across the United States and Canada on June 15th. They announced the change, and it was just given to everyone who does Uber on our apps. It was sort of a new contract that we're signing with them, and it was non-negotiable. You wouldn't be able to work until you signed it. And and right at that moment, our pay started going down slowly, little by little. It wasn't $3.99 initially, but as time went on, the pay started going slowly down. There's a couple of my fellow couriers who have taken the time to tabulate graphs of the pays we're making pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And yeah, the base pay that Uber pays us has really gone down. A lot of our pay is subsidized by customer tips.
Yeah.
But that doesn't hide the fact that Uber is not at most times paying us even a minimum wage.
So it almost sounds as though it's like you got a notification on your phone from Uber that said you're not allowed to use the Uber app until you agree to our new terms of a service or something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. It was non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable.
You either accepted it or you didn't.
Yeah. Okay. How does that system and the consequential decrease in your wage, how does that compare to the other services? You mentioned you're a courier for the other services. Has the same thing happened there?
It's sort of really hard to tell because you would have to do everything is based on per delivery. And different apps have, they have different customer bases. Some are busier than others. Some serve specific restaurants and not others. But I would say Skip and DoorDash have more or less stuck with the same pay structure that they had pre-pandemic and post. But yeah, as I said, I've been working for Uber since 2016, and it's kind of tough to swallow that you work a job for 4 years, and 4 years in the middle of pandemic, when you're basically going out during a lockdown every day, delivering to people under quarantine, delivering groceries.
Yeah, you're on the front line, right? You're on the front line.
Yeah, because pre-pandemic, I was just delivering food. But with COVID making changes to everything, I started delivering groceries. Restaurants were like, we need to sell alcohol to keep afloat. So Uber said, okay, we'll have our couriers deliver alcohol too to help your business. And now we have to get Smart Serve, and we're delivering alcohol. And throughout all this, our pay is just going down. So bigger responsibilities, less pay.
Okay. Why do you do it?
I mean, I do it because I actually enjoy doing the job.
Okay.
It's less enjoyable when you're making less money. But yeah, it used to be more fun for sure, because I would go out and work and expect to make a certain amount of money. But the reduction in pay, sort of, I have to change my strategy. I have to hunt out the big tips to make it worth my trip. So if I'm delivering a single burger from McDonald's, I'm going to decline that because the best tip I'm going to get is 50 cents or whatever.
Right.
And and it does make it difficult because I am a bike courier. I'm outside in sometimes -20 wind chill, and I'm sitting there with my phone accepting and rejecting orders while I'm freezing.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of the old issue back in the days before there was ever such a thing as Uber, that taxi drivers would refuse fares if the fare would only take them 3 or 4 blocks down the road. They don't want to take that fare if they'd rather sit around, even if it means they wait a half an hour to sit around to get a fare to the airport, because it will be better. Yeah. So you're kind of in the same circumstance right now, right?
Exactly, but it's just it's been a steady decline, so you're not even noticing it happen. And obviously, because of the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people who were doing this part-time, not as their main source of income, it started becoming their main source of income. So, they're facing this condition, and they didn't know what it paid before. And for me, I can say, that's not worth my time, because before the pandemic, I wasn't putting myself in danger. I would make more. But, some people haven't worked this job before the pandemic. So that worked to Uber's favor, right? Someone will always do the order I reject. And it's a race to the bottom at that point, because I can't guarantee it won't be $2.99 this time next year, right?
Have you thought about doing something else? Just kind of getting out of it. Like, there's going to come a point where, if it is that race to the bottom, is it really worth your time, right? If you can't even make a living at it.
That's sort of the point of the gig workers, which I'm a part of. I'm organizing with them. It's actually the second iteration of Foodsters United, which was an effort to unionize Fedora couriers, and they actually won a major victory at the Ontario Relations Board, where these companies, Fedora, Uber, with no questions asked, because they have all the money and power, say you're independent contractors, you don't deserve a minimum wage, you don't deserve, health and safety. You're going to purchase your own gear, even though you're getting paid $399 to purchase that gear. Yeah. So that decision that was made at the OLRB was sort of, no, you can't just decide that unilaterally. You're treating them as employees, and you're getting away with not paying them a minimum wage. Unfortunately, Fedora left, but
Fedora lost, and your side won. So Fedora said, "Well, whatever, we'll just leave Canada."
Exactly,
it's just what they did, right?
Yeah. And so the hope is, because they've existed for years, and no one was able, because we were not independent contractors all that time, but until we took action and actually took them to the labor board, then we realized, oh, wait, we were, dependent contractors all this time. So, I think the same community that we had when Fedora still existed, we're trying to build on that and hopefully, be able to advocate for better pay. I think, like the restaurants, Ontario decided to cap the fees because it was too much. They were getting as high as 30% on their deliveries. Yeah. And they were able to, voice that opinion and have policy change so that Uber didn't take as much money from them. So hopefully something similar happens and it puts a stop to that, right? On our side too.
Okay. Good luck, sir. I thank you for your information.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Narada, Kiondo, Toronto Food Courier, Gig Workers United. Up after the news, Mr. Trudeau has just started his news conference, and Dr. Paul Roumeliotis, the medical officer of health for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, reacts to the announcement yesterday and the crisis that is opioid overdoses in his area. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Tuesday, February 9th. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa, partly cloudy skies and -10. It's partly cloudy and -7 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Breaking news from Air Canada. The airline will temporarily lay off 1,500 unionized employees and an unspecified number of management staff as it cuts more routes. As of February 18th, Air Canada will temporarily suspend service on 17 routes to the United States and other international destinations until at least April 30th. Stay with City News as we develop this continuing story. Provincial health officials reporting 1,022 new cases of COVID-19 and 17 new deaths in Ontario. The numbers out of just under 31,000 tests. Public Health Ontario reporting 25 new cases of COVID-19 in Ottawa. And yesterday, the health unit confirmed 38 new cases and 2 new deaths. Now, provincial health officials have also confirmed 1 case of the South African variant of COVID-19 in Ottawa. That's out of 3 such cases of the variant province-wide. Elsewhere locally, there's 1 new case of COVID-19 for Eastern Ontario and no new cases in either Renfrew County or Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. Quebec is reporting 826 new cases of COVID-19 and 32 more deaths due to the virus. 5 of those deaths in the previous 24 hours. There are 7 new cases of COVID-19 in the Outaouais. I'm Sarah Buchan for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Joined now by Dr. Paul Roumeliotis, who is the Medical Officer of Health for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning.
It's very nice to hear from you. What is your reaction to the province's new reopening plan?
Well, it's not unexpected. I did expect it to be regional. I think that the people in our area have now seen a huge surge gone away thanks to the lockdown. So I think the lockdown did work. The only reservation that I have is that we will be going back to likely orange in our area next week. Right now we're bordering red to orange, but I do suspect that it'll be orange. My only reservation is that people should not take this as a license not to forget about public health measures.
Okay. So what will it mean in that constant battle between lives and livelihoods?
Sure. What
will it mean in terms of what businesses are allowed to reopen, what measures will be put in place, what has to remain closed?
Well, essentially, most businesses will be allowed to open. Retail will be allowed to open. Restaurants and gyms will be allowed to open, albeit with restrictions. There will be dine-in terms of restaurants, again, if you're orange. If we're red, it's a bit more restrictive, less people, but they will essentially all open. The issue is that we are now going to be really launching a public education campaign, particularly in our area, because of the fact that we want people to understand that although we are opening the economy, and that's a tightrope balance between the economic well-being, psychological well-being of the population, and our numbers. I think that people should understand that it still doesn't mean that you should go out for just go out for the fun of it. Go out for essential reasons, come back home, and sort of just abide to that. The stay-at-home order is going to expire next week for us in Ottawa as well, but that doesn't mean that we still would like you to stay home as much as possible. And at the same time, obviously, we'll keep an eye on the numbers. The good thing is, Rob, that we're now in our area, we've vaccinated all of our long-term care residents at least the first dose, and now we're going around the second dose. So I think what I'd like to tell people is that, just hang in there a bit longer. The more we get people vaccinated in our area, the more we'll be able to loosen some of these restrictions. So there is like that proverbial light at the end of that tunnel.
And Doctor, do you feel as though you're behind where you had hoped to be at this point on vaccinations?
Well, we were hoping to have had a bit more vaccines earlier sent to us, but unfortunately we didn't. We are now, we were asked to vaccinate everybody by February 15th in terms of first dose. And we've done it. We're now going around doing second dose for our long-term care. We're now doing our retirement homes as well. The good news is that although this week we're not getting the vaccine supply, next week I'm getting triple what I got last week, and the following week I should be getting quadruple
quadruple what I got the previous, this week as well. So I think we're headed in the right direction. The more we vaccinate those vulnerable populations, the less worried I would be about them, because they're the ones that are dying. They're the ones that are being hospitalized.
Okay. Well, what's your take as a medical officer of health on the federal government approving this label change for the Pfizer shots that will now say 6 doses per vial instead of 5? What are we, the layperson, supposed to make of that, Doctor?
Well, what that means is that delivering more vaccines per tray. So each tray has 150 vials, and each vial has 5 doses. Right now, it'll be 6 times that. So it'll be 1 dose more per vial. I'm not sure that I agree with that, because we can get away. It says 5 doses per vial. We can get away with it most of the time when we use a specific small syringe, but sometimes you don't have enough to do a 6th dose. So I'm not sure why they approved that. I just found out through you, actually. I haven't listened to that news before.
Okay.
It's a struggle for us. However, most of the time we get 6. We can squeeze 6 out of it, but it is labeled as 5.
Don't waste a drop.
We don't waste a drop. We don't waste a drop. Believe you me, we've got people specially trained. We've got videos on how to draw it out that you can get that 6th dose fully using those small syringes, which we're trying to get. And there's a bit of a shortage of those on top of that. But I think from our last round, we went to one of the retirement homes. Our nurses and our EMS staff that were vaccinating, I think they were able to get 6 doses out of all our vials. So with practice, I guess we'll be good at it. And like I said, the majority of the vials that we can extract 6. So that just means that with one delivery, they're delivering more vaccine on paper.
Okay.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah. Now, on the reopening, how wise is it, do you think, to really be loosening restrictions given the unknowns about these new, potentially more contagious variants of this virus?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was hoping that we would open slowly, perhaps put everybody in red, just to be able to do it in a very slow way to ensure that Easy does it, opening some restaurants with small numbers, opening retail with smaller numbers, and then progressing. But they elected to just bring us back to what we are in terms of the orange. So I'm just leery about people getting together, leery about people taking this as a license to go out and gather and so on, which is not, obviously. And so I'm just worried. I'll be honest with you, if it wasn't for the variant, I would be very, very happy about this, because in our area, particularly our rural area, our retail small businesses are suffering tremendously, and sometimes there's going to be irreversible economic damage, and so we need to balance that moving forward. At the same time, with this new variant that's out there, it really is. It can actually be as 1.5 times, 1.5 times more contagious than the original version, albeit it still transmits in the exact same way, and we can still prevent it in the exact same way. So I'm a bit leery about it, but on the other hand, like I said, I really feel for our rural, particularly in our area, the rural retailers that now can start operating slowly and start regaining some business and be able to survive. So it's really a fine balance. Again, our message is be very careful. This new variant, Rob, I call it unforgiving, because you may get away with going closer to somebody with the original virus, and the virus doesn't have the capacity to infect you right away. But this variant doesn't forgive, and you can't get away with it. So it's very important that we maintain all of these 6 feet distancing, 2 meter distancing, in other words, masking, and all the screening and all the contact tracing we need to do, so we can ensure that this doesn't become what we call the dominant strain. Because at this rate, last week we were at less than 100 positive strains. Now we're at 260, I think. I just saw the numbers this morning. So it is there. It's inevitable that it's going to be in our region. There are a couple, I think one more announced this morning in Ottawa. None in our area, but it's inevitable that at some point we will get it. And again, there's nothing magic about this. It's just that you need to ensure that you follow the measures. And if we do follow the measures and collectively, stay home, go out for essential purposes only, we can ride it out and not see a third wave resurgence and give us time to vaccinate everybody.
Okay. What is the situation with the opioid crisis in your health unit?
Well, we've last year, just to give you an example, in 2019 we had 34 opioid overdoses in our emergency rooms. We have four emergency room hospitals in our area. Between January and August of 2020, we had 40. So we had in an 8-month period, and then moving forward, we had another close to 40 as well. So it's like we more than double the numbers in 2019, and I do attribute that to stresses related to what we call unwanted consequences of the pandemic, stressing everybody. We know that some of these drugs have been laced because there was supply issues. They were laced with another medication, benzodiazepam, that is not reversed by Narcan, the antidote.
Yes.
And so we're seeing more. That's why we actually had in partnership with our police, had some public messaging last year just to warn people that, the drugs that you're taking on the street, albeit were always dangerous, are even more dangerous now because they're adding all these other ingredients because they had a hard time getting their supply.
Okay.
So we see this as a side effect, an unwanted consequence, and that's why we're telling people, the more we can buckle down, get the numbers down, let's vaccinate, and the quicker we can resume normal activities, the better it's going to be for everybody's mental health.
Okay, but just so I have this right, you had about less than 40 the year before, right?
Yeah.
In 2019.
Yeah, we had 34.
34, yeah. And closer to 80 for 2020.
Yeah.
So it's more than doubled.
That's right. Yeah,
part of the problem as well is I know the advice in Ottawa during the opioid crisis has been don't use alone, but now it's don't be around anybody, right?
Well,
that's another isolation is driving some of that.
Of course. It's isolation, and again, people are desperate. People have lost their livelihoods. People have lost, don't have contact with others.
Yeah.
So you can see that. We also see a toll, I'm sure, in younger children and all age groups, elderly. That seclusion, that isolation doesn't help, and again, those are what we call these sort of unavoidable, perhaps unwanted consequences of this lockdown. So that's why we have to balance everything. It's not just as easy as saying our numbers are high. You got to keep closed. You got to keep closed. So that's why I keep an open eye. Again, I am on one hand I am happy that we're opening because of that effect on the population. There's going to be a positive effect mentally, and as well economically. And on the other hand, we need to balance, doing it slowly but surely.
Does your health unit have access to things like harm reduction facilities, supervised sites?
No, we do not have that. But we do have needle exchange programs and a lot of other programs with our partner agencies in our area. As a matter of fact, we are now putting together a mobile truck that's going to go around to support individuals. We were going to do that before the pandemic, but then the pandemic hit. But we still have an ambulance that's going to be going around. So we did not have a need for that, but should there ever be a need, of course we would set it up. But right now we just some support systems and we have the Ontario Drug Awareness Group, which is made up of paramedics, doctors, hospitals, coroner's office, and so on, just to be able to gather the information and inform each other of what's going on, what we're seeing, what drug seizures were done, and so on. So we have a regular coalition that looks at this on a regular basis.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Nice to hear from you, sir. Always a pleasure. Yeah, Dr. Paul Roumeliotis is the Medical Officer of Health for the Eastern Ontario Health Unit. The owner of Calabogie Peaks, Paul Murphy, will join me next on a resumption, hopefully, of downhill skiing at Calabogie. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Snowsuit Fund is in almost its 40th year. We've been helping low-income families keep children warm during our cold winters in Ottawa. Last season we distributed over 16,000 snowsuits to families in our Ottawa area. Well, it originally started with just a handful of snowsuits being handed out, and it has now grown to 16,000 each year. All families must qualify for a snowsuit. We have a eligibility criteria that we follow, and it's based on low income. We follow the Stats Canada guidelines. If families are receiving assistance, they receive a snowsuit from us if they need one. We are no government funding. We are supported by the community. All our donations come from generous supporters in the community. People can donate directly to the Snowsuit Fund. $50 buys a brand new snowsuit for a child in need. Online you can do through Canada Helps or directly through the Snowsuit Fund. Well, the Snowsuit Fund has really had to change its operation this season with the physical distancing. Normally we have many families coming in at the same time. We are now by appointment only. We don't know if our numbers will increase, but we expect that they will go up this season. Unfortunately, this season we are not able to have the volunteers due to the spacing. Last season we had over 700 volunteers, but this year we have only allowing 8 volunteers, and they have to be continual volunteers on a regular basis. So we're not changing and introducing new people in the depot.
It's just a great charity to get involved in, and it's really when you come here and see what happens at the depot that it really starts to hook you when you see people walk in. I mean, it's changed a lot this year in terms of how the depot is working, but I was here in the days when families would show up and there could be anywhere from a mother and a single child to 12 family members, getting snowsuits and running back to the warehouse and getting different colors and different sizes. And the one constant that has always stuck with me is when you take a snowsuit out and you see a child's face. I mean, if you want to see some bright eyes and some wide grins, it's amazing. When they leave here, they're just incredibly happy.
Well, I think this year with COVID, I think it's very important that children have the opportunity to play outside and have a warm snowsuit. And thanks to the generous community, we are fortunate to provide these snowsuits to them. And I hope that once again we can count on their support.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Downhill ski resorts in Ontario can reopen once the province lifts the shutdown restrictions in their region. So welcome news, I'm sure, for Paul Murphy, the owner of Calabogie Peaks Resort. Good morning, Mr. Murphy. Nice to hear from you again.
Good morning, Rob. Thank you for having me on. Great to be with you.
So are you a happy man today?
Well, happier, sir.
Happier. Okay.
Happy is a relative word.
Yes. Okay.
We are very pleased to be able to reopen, but we are having to struggle with what's gone on and recoup, some of the financial losses and job losses that have occurred here over the last almost 50 days now. So, we have to take it all in balance, and, that's all the best we can do, essentially.
Yeah. So when do you open?
So we're going to open on Thursday. We can't, even with the government telling us on Monday, we can't flip a switch and do it right away. It's a large business. There's up to 100 full-time and part-time employees, and it just takes a massive amount of organization. And we didn't want to reach out to anybody and then go, of course, until we heard from the Premier yesterday. So after hearing from him, we did everything we could to move the schedule, Rob, and the best we can do is to open Thursday, and that'll get us through some of the interesting nitty-gritties of restocking the food shelves, retraining staff, grooming the trails, getting the chairs spinning again. You can imagine all the pieces involved, right?
Yeah. And everything's been sitting there, and it's been minus 20, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I got to fire everything up again. What preventive measures do you have to put in place, and what kind of investment has that been financially for your business, sir?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been significant. We're doing all of the traditional masking that everybody's doing, and when you're inside our ski lodge, it'll be like being in a restaurant. We'll have the extra spacing. We've actually tried some different things. We did this, of course, before the closure stay-at-home order came. So in the lodge, to just get people through at a better pace so everybody has a chance to come in and get warmed up, we were actually doing food service to the tables, and it worked very well. And so we'll continue with that. We'll have some restrictions on how long you can be in the lodge so that, on busy periods, everyone gets a chance to come in and use the washroom and get some food.
Right.
And then the other thing we did, which was really significant, is we invested this year in an RFID ticketing system. And these are the systems that are touchless. And so when you come to the resort, you have a card that you can reload just like a credit card. And
Right.
you can go to the ski lift and you don't touch anything. It reads you, it knows who you are, and it lets you through. And we made that investment this year, Rob, knowing the challenges we have with COVID, and we thought it was the right time to make that investment.
How much does something like that run you?
$350,000.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money. Yeah. And then they came along and they shut you down anyway.
They did.
Yeah.
So the good news is the government is going to get a grant out to us of something around $10,000, which should last for about a day or two.
Yeah. Spend $350,000, get $10,000 back. That's a great deal.
How's that for investment? Yeah.
How many days have you been closed that you thought you would be open this season, Mr. Murphy?
It looks like it's going to be about 49 or 50.
Wow.
And the ski season is typically about 115 days.
Wow.
So it's basically half of the season when you round it.
So you're hoping that all the groundhogs are wrong, and it's going to be like a lot of winter left, right?
Exactly. It's a great point you're making, because that 115 days can go longer or shorter depending upon how long the snow stays. And we've seen, of course, the snow gone shortly after the March break, and then we've seen the snow stay right into the middle of April. The old rule of thumb in the ski business was that, even if you had wonderful snow in April, people's minds were changing and they were thinking of golf and warm weather activities, right?
Right.
It's possible this year, if the snow does stay because of the vortex we currently have, and that colder weather stays for a while, it's possible we may see some more robust skiing in late March, early April, simply because people have not had the opportunity to do it.
So what have you been doing to try and, I guess, the buzzword is pivot, what other aspects of the business have you been trying to promote with no skiing happening, no downhill skiing happening?
Yeah, great question. So we have a beautiful destination here. So we've let everybody know that they're welcome to come out and hike the mountain and snowshoe. And I've just been really impressed at how many people have come out and enjoyed that. It's a very peaceful thing because, you're on your own in your own little group for a while. That's not really a revenue generator, but it's a goodwill reach out to our customers, and they've enjoyed that. We've just told them that they can't ski, obviously, for reasons that we all know. And then our food and beverage business has been shut down. Our hotel has remained open,
right,
but really catering mostly to essential service personnel. We have some projects in our area, and those people are staying with us. And the exciting one is our real estate business. So we have opened up real estate sales at Calabogie Peaks. We've been working on this for 4 or 5 years, and we have a whole bunch of townhomes and condominiums and some single-family lots coming to market shortly, and that's a really bright spot for us. And because we have a lot of people who are interested in living in this area, either full-time or part-time, so that's a new business which will really sustain us and I think take us through a significant growth period.
What were you hearing? I'm curious because people could still go to the Quebec hills and ski. What were you hearing in your industry say about people in Eastern Ontario just going across the border?
Yeah, ski? We know many customers have done it. So we have a number of Seasons Pass holders who decided just to take a refund right up front of their Seasons Pass, and I suspect, we believe many of them have bought either passes or tickets to go skiing in Quebec. I know a number of our regular skiers are skiing in Quebec, and that was a little frustrating for us because you can imagine, right? And then I know some of our members have said they didn't do it because they didn't feel it was the right thing to do, but if you have a family that's, really active in skiing and you've got children that are on ski teams and whatnot, it's like hockey. They're likely going to go and do it and, be careful doing it. But I don't think that provincial line was a wall by any means.
Yeah. Is it true that Ontario was the only place in North America that didn't allow downhill skiing?
It is true.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
incredible,
We are struggling still to understand what the province of Ontario knew that the rest of the jurisdictions didn't know. We really felt that we have a great sport to allow people to get outside, and your previous speaker was pointing out how important mental health is through these stressful, lonely times. And we think ski hills are offering a great opportunity to address that question, and it's frustrating we weren't able to see that in Ontario.
Do you think you'll be busy? I know even though the hills were open, for example, Camp Fortune says it's not getting the crowds that it used to get, for example, that there are people who are staying away. What kind of crowds are you anticipating, say, Thursday and onwards, sir?
We're all scratching our head on that, and we're having a little private pool on that one, Rob.
Okay, all right.
We don't know. We tend to be optimists, and I think if you're in the ski business, you have to be an optimist. And we suspect that it'll be robust.
Good.
There are some people that don't like the idea of not being able to go into the lodge when they want to, that they may have to have some time slots or whatever, but there's so many people that I think have pent-up demand and just love this destination that I'm hoping the parking lot will be full, but maybe we should have a call in a couple of weeks so we can reflect and see how that went.
Would love to. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Great. I'm glad you're back up and running, sir. Good luck later this week.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Yeah, Paul Murphy is the owner of the Calabogie Peaks Resort. That's it for the Rob Snow Show for today. We're back tomorrow right after the 9 o'clock news. The Mark Sutcliffe Show is coming up after the noon news on City News.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.